Hello, Globebusters. Yes, of course they're serious. You do? You have? No kidding. Uh-huh. Oh, they'll cure your globitis this week. Thank you. We got one!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Globebusters.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators.
And now, here's your host.
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, Strawman Arguments Used Against Flat Earth. I'm your host, Bob, Xanadude60, and we're back for another, well, I guess this is a Thursday evening edition. We didn't have one last night. I was a little bit too discombobulated and working with trying to get some things set up on my computer to get a show together last night. So decided to go ahead and do it tonight instead. And that's something that I probably will do occasionally, is kind of toggle back and forth between Wednesday and Thursday nights, because sometimes it just works out a little bit better that way. So, but in any event, you guys will still be getting 2 nights a week or 2 days a week of Globebusters. And so that'll be a really good thing. So today, guys, we are going to be talking about, obviously, the strawman arguments used against flat Earth. And obviously there are numerous strawman arguments that they use. You know, stupid things like, well, if the Earth was flat, you'd have 24-hour daylight, right? Because of course they're looking at the sun as being 93 million miles away, and you know, it would light the whole Earth all at one time. But frankly, you know, I contend that I don't believe that, you know, even at 93 million miles, the sun is even bright enough to make the distance be even visible according to the inverse square law. But haven't actually done the math of that. But without knowing the source brightness, it would make it difficult. But we do know the destination brightness, and just the moon, you know, coming to us at a mere 0.1 lux on a full moon comes out to be a number that is so far beyond belief that it's just simply, you know, ridiculous to even, you know, contemplate. So I'm thinking that the sun would probably fit into that very same category, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. So, all right. So we have a different panel with us again tonight. First up is John the Morgile. How you doing tonight, John?
I'm doing okay. Caught me with my pants down there. I wasn't thinking I was going to be first, but hey, I get to be first today. Hey.
You get to be first. Yeah, that's right. Because none of the other original Globebusters are here. So, you know, that would be you.
Seniority, son. What? No. And I know exactly what you mean about the whole 24-hour day thing with the Globetards, man. It's like they try to apply the heliocentric paradigm to flat Earth, and that doesn't work, right? I mean, the two sort of concepts are mutually exclusive. So, sure, when you're first looking at flat Earth, you're like, well, everybody knows the Earth's a ball because we have day and night, right? How would we have day and night if the Earth weren't a ball? It isn't until you start to realize that day and night are not exclusive to a ball that argument just falls by the wayside, just like all the other arguments. So, really, that's how everything is for the ball, though, isn't it? Everything that was sort of preached to us as exclusive concrete proof of the spinning ball Earth, turns out it was just circumstantial evidence that can go either way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's one of the biggest things. I actually did a show on it. I'm sure you remember a long time ago. I think it was titled something like, "Why Do We Play by Their Rules?" And, you know, what I meant by that is, why do we allow ourselves to be drawn into the globe Earth, you know, model to try and debunk flat Earth, because obviously they're
Mhm.
two very incompatible models, and of course, some things aren't going to work on one model versus another one, like the latitude and longitude system, which was clearly designed for a sphere, and the flat Earth model is not a sphere, and yet they will apply that to a flat Earth model and say, see, it can't be, can't work because the latitude and longitude doesn't work. It's just retarded.
Well, and it's like this. I mean, latitude and longitude is something that we could probably do a whole show on, but the majority of the sort of astronomical mapping of the world was done in the northern hemisphere. So that would be like in the center of the flat Earth map. And when you get down south of the equator, really in the far south, I think that we, at some point, collectively need to do some geodetic surveying of the far southern regions and get a better idea of what's going on there. I think that would unlock a lot of the mysteries that we have right now in terms of the model and the map if we do some actual surveying in the far south.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I do indeed. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and introduce our other two panel members. Next up, we have Mr. Good Times for All, or Zachary Zabala, if you prefer. How you doing tonight, Zach?
Hey, Bobo. Pretty good. Good day today, so can't complain. Sun came around.
That's true. Yeah, it was a beautiful day here in South Carolina today, and it wasn't too hot, and you got a chance to go out and plant some gardens.
Yeah, it was. I love it. It was such a nice afternoon, just watering the plants and, getting back into it's been a couple years, actually like 3 years since I've had a garden. And I was hitting flat Earth hard at that time. So I was really neglecting my gardens. And it was more of a going through the motions. And I told myself this year I'm really going to dedicate some time to each and every one of these plants, and get back into nature again, how I used to be. So it was a good day.
Plants have feelings too,
Absolutely.
They do.
Absolutely.
And it's something, honestly, that with the way that things are going now with let's just say highly suspect oil shutoffs, right? That there is all of a sudden now a gas shortage, especially being felt here in the Carolinas. I know it's not happening in the West Coast, but and it would just stand to reason that the thing that's going to come behind that is going to be a food shortage, of course. So if you haven't already kind of seen the writing on the wall, that's a real good one to maybe start a garden, or start considering that, because that will undoubtedly be the next move, in my opinion, or at least one that will be coming up in the very near future.
Yeah, it's better than printing your own money, because this food is never going to lose its value. It's always going to be food.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And also we have with us Mr. John Savage, who has joined us for the last few shows. And John, welcome to the show. Glad to have you back with us.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, John. Hi, Zach. Yeah, looking forward to this. Very quiet week, my end. But I was speaking about food. I was looking into pressure canning over this week, which you guys over there can just pop down Walmart and pick everything you need up for $100. Can't get it over here. Simply cannot get it. And if you can find anything, it costs an absolute fortune, even down to the jars. So yeah, they really don't want us canning food over here. But yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Food shortages. Yeah, the whole Suez Canal thing. They're going to bring that up as well. The boat blocking that's going to have domino effect, knock-on effects, I think. But yeah, looking forward to the show, and hopefully we won't starve to death.
Yeah, let's hope not. All right. Good deal. All right, so I guess I'm going to start off with a couple of quick announcements. One thing that I found interesting that kind of showed up in my email, and I think this is going to be kind of interesting, is this popped up. And the reason I think this is interesting that this popped up is because this is from David Wilcock, and believe it or not, I still follow this guy, even though I know that he is very, very far off on a lot of things. But I think it's going to be interesting to see this actually covered tonight. And he's going to be talking about the sun flashing, and that's a phenomenon that we have covered a few times here on Globebusters. And for whatever reason, it appears to be becoming more and more prevalent. So I'm interested in hearing what he says about it. Because I know that in prophecy it's supposedly be spoken of, and he's going to be talking about that, and just some things in general. But I just thought it would be an interesting thing. So if you guys are interested at all in that, you can go over to his channel, David Wilcock, and like I said, I wouldn't listen to him on too many other things, but things like this I think he covers very well, and it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say about what other cultures have to say about this flashing sun phenomenon that is going on. Have you guys heard much about this?
No. What? How do you mean flashing? I mean, I've heard of the green flash when it sets and that sort of thing, but what do you mean flashing?
Well, like they've been getting a lot of very interesting footage, like in India and different places. I've seen it myself. I've actually seen it, and you think your eyes are playing tricks with you, but the sun will all of a sudden just start flashing. And it's been caught on camera several times, and people are seeing it with their eyes. So it's not that, the camera is just doing anything in particular, but there is some phenomenon that's going on with the sun. And of course, we've been talking about the changes in the sun, the fact that now all of a sudden it has been so incredibly intense that they had to invent a whole new scale for it, right? And she's also noticed that when the BZ index fluctuates so radically like it does, that the stock markets change, all kinds of, very strange behavior goes on. Stock markets changed. One thing I've noticed is the Bitcoin markets are kind of going wonky. Just all kinds of strange things are happening. So believe it or not, it seems like a lot of things are actually tied to the behavior of the sun. And I'm sure some people, they may be surprised by that. Other people, not so much. After, watching Cami study this for so many years, it doesn't surprise me that much. But yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say about it, and exactly, what he thinks is going on with this flashing sun. But yeah, that's the phenomenon. Very interesting.
I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that the sun and the moon would have to play a huge role in what goes on down here. I mean, the moon is obvious with menstrual cycles and the lunacy that happens around a full moon. I see there's no reason why the sun wouldn't have exactly the same, if not similar.
Well, yeah, and we plant it affects plants. If you plant your seeds according to the moon, they produce more fish. If you go fishing at moonrise and moonset, you'll catch 10 times more fish in those 2 hours than you will the rest of the day. There's so many things that are attributed to the moon that nature, it's like an on-off switch for nature. Yeah,
yeah. So, and again, and of course, the mainstream education system, or I should say indoctrination system, and I do mean indoctrination system because that's going to be one of the things that we cover tonight, that this person we're going to be debunking, claims that we claim, and that's just nonsense. It's like, oh my God. And honestly, anybody that can't see that is so blind, they're almost not worth talking to. But yeah, the level of indoctrination that people go through, and none of this stuff is ever brought up. And of course, it's because they don't want people to, understand this type of esoteric knowledge, right? So that's the way that goes. Okay, so next thing up is I've got here a little play. You guys can't hear the music in the background, unfortunately, because for whatever reason, I couldn't get the screen share to do the sound, but that's okay. But what it is it is a little advert from Iron Realm Media that is advertising the show for this coming up Friday, which I guess is tomorrow, right? It's tomorrow, Zach? Is that right?
Yep. Tomorrow's show.
Yeah. Okay. And what it's going to be about, of course, their primary guest is Brian Stabley. And, hat tip to Brian Stabley, who, as you know, covers the Mandela effect. And they wanted to have him on there so that they could kind of, get his take on the Mandela effect. I obviously, I'm not sure what to think about it, other than I know for a fact that Dolly had braces. And there are a few other ones that puzzle me deeply, like, C-3PO having the silver foot, which I don't ever recall, or the characters in The Wizard of Oz having, guns and, stuff like that. I mean, stuff like that just blows my mind. And it just seems like, whatever you think of it, some people don't buy it at all. Some people are partially affected. Other people, see it happening all the time. And so Brian is going to come on and basically talk about that a little bit and, give us his take on what's going on with it. Of course, a lot of the people that watch this channel, I'm sure, are already familiar with Brian Stabley, but I'm going to be on there because I'm going to be bringing my special take on it as to what is causing the Mandela effect, because I do have my own kind of take on it that I believe would be a reasonable explanation. Of course, whether or not you buy the premise of what I'm going to say or not is a whole nother deal altogether. But I definitely have a take on what I think might be happening. So if you like stuff like that, kind of stepping off into, down into the rabbit hole, I think it'll be a good show. So it will be Friday, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Did I miss anything on that, Zach?
Nope, that was it. Thank you, Bob.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, cool. So let's kill that. And let's see, what was the other one that I had? I had one other announcement, and I think that was this. And this goes out to the Flat Earth Yacht Club. Now, I didn't even know we had a Flat Earth Yacht Club, but apparently we do. And that's pretty cool because they're going to be holding their first annual Commodore's Ball. And this will be at a place called Tybee Island off of Georgia. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. So
I know David had started his yacht club up in Connecticut up there.
Oh, that's true. Did he start his own Flat Earth Yacht Club too?
Well, yeah, there's a flat Earth marker out in the water, and it has a flat Earth thing because you can get your own like buoy and put it out there, and you pay so much. And yeah, if you type in Flat Earth Yacht Club, now I guess there will be two of them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I guess I need a yacht then.
Yeah,
rubbing my nose in it again. Come on, Bitcoin.
Yeah. What's the deal, man? We got to get up our social status here. But anyway, it kicks off on June 18th in Tybee, Georgia at 11 o'clock a.m. And I will have the links to all this in the show notes. But if you just want to go there and check it out now, you can go to Karen B's site, theflatearthfestivals.com, where she advertises the Flattoberfest and the Solar Return and all that stuff. She's added that as an event that you can check out. But so it'll be going on for 2 days, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And as we get more details on it, we'll certainly put it out here. But I just wanted to give those guys a shout out and kind of let everybody know about it. And who does it look like? It looks like there's going to be Dr. Law is going to be cooking, and Christian Knapp is going to be doing some of the entertainment. And they have a Facebook page and everything. And like I said, I will put all that in the show notes. So there you have it.
Very cool.
Right. Yeah. All right. So let's see what else we have. I think that's probably going to cover it for the announcements. All right. So let's get on to the main part of the show. And I'm kind of like hesitating because the guy that we're going to be talking about frankly, I think is a complete jackass. I just don't know how to describe him, but he is not a Professor Dave. And you guys, I'm sure, have seen plenty of his videos. And, this guy is one of the most arrogant, egotistical, horses' asses, basically, that are out there. But it's the reason I chose him is primarily because if you go into YouTube and you just simply type flat earth, he occupies about 8 of the first 10 videos. And of course, some of them are directly addressing the globe busters because, this feud kind of got kicked off several years ago. But, he's just, it's unbelievable to watch this guy operate. And, essentially what he does is he completely twists the facts around. I mean, he creates a straw man and then he completely twists the facts around it. And I just, think that it's about time that we kind of straighten it out and point out his methodology of exactly what he's doing. And, as much as it pains me, I think it kind of is necessary. Now, I will say that there are some things that he says that they're correct, right, to some degree. But again, his condescending horse's ass attitude, just doesn't make him any fun to listen to. And, I apologize for that in advance, but I think we just need to kind of talk about it.
As they say, what is it? The best lie is 90% truth, or 10%. No, it's 90% truth, 10% lies, isn't it? He'd have to have something right, put it that way. But I've never seen a single video of his, so this is all new to me. I avoid these people like the plague.
Well, you're not missing much, honestly. So, there you have it. So, all right. So
I think the only time I've ever seen one of his videos is when you guys are covering it. That's the only time I've spent time wasting time,
Wasting time.
Yeah.
Well, and here we are going today to do this. Oh, well, that's okay. No
well, I'm
big
not
deal.
saying us doing it is wasting time. I'm saying if I were just watching him, that would be wasting time.
Right. Yep.
This is educational.
All right, so let me go ahead and stop this share, and I'm going to reshare with audio on this guy. So hang on just a second. Share screen, Chrome tab. Oops, I hope I have the right one here. Let's see. Can you guys hear that?
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay, then I shared the wrong damn screen. That's okay. We'll just do this one. This is the one he's on. All right, so let's go ahead and start out by, hearing his opening salvo here. And like I said, I apologize for this guy's, condescending tone. And boy, what a jackass he is. But, we're just going to take it down a few notches as we address this video. So here we go. Take it away.
Speak for yourself,
Professor. You can hear that, right?
No,
I cannot hear it.
Really?
no.
Yeah, that's perfect. Keep it just like that. No.
And you can't hear this one either?
Not a
I didn't see it even switch, Bobo. We're not seeing that screen.
All
We're
right.
still seeing the one that you had just paused. Yeah.
nothing.
All right. Let's try this again. Boy, that's weird. Well, maybe you guys are going to get locked out and you won't have to listen to him today. All right. So let's share screen. Let's say Chrome tab, 10 things all flat earthers say, share audio.
Yeah,
Share.
I get more comments from people saying, "Oh, you should see this guy here, Professor Dave, and then what is that? Simon and Dan, them two, about how they've just debunked this and da da." And you watch, especially Simon and Dan, but this guy too. They just go and they voice assumptions or they voice circumstantial evidence as if it's some authoritative, like concrete physical evidence or some fact. And that's all they have to do. But if you actually sort of dig into what they're saying, their main premises are just totally screwed. So yeah, just I can't stand them. But how are we doing with the sound, Bob?
Okay, let's see if you can hear this now.
All right.
Been a consistent bit of activity.
All right, we can hit that. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and hear out his opening salvo. Here we go.
Recent foray into the flat earth community, most notably with this lengthy response to the Globe Busters. For about 2 months now, the comments section of that video has been a consistent hotbed of activity, with hundreds of flat earthers stopping by to share their opinions. For people who claim that globe-tards just repeat what they were told in school, you guys sure do all say the exact same things. And I don't just mean the same arguments. I mean the same things word for word, like they were copied and pasted from some manifesto.
Yeah, like what the globe-tards aren't saying is exactly the same thing. Why? Because they came from the exact same indoctrination system.
Find me a textbook that says the Earth's flat, and I'll kiss your butt, Professor Dave. Really?
No doubt. Okay, so yeah, and that's another thing is this guy basically had 0 subs, nothing, no followers. He had maybe a couple hundred views on his videos until, of course, he did the response to the Globebusters, and then of course YouTube decided that that's just what they needed is a condescending smartass to come back at us and, make it go viral. So they purposely pushed it to the top. And now this guy actually thinks that he is somebody, but
he's been,
to some degree, I think he does have a point though, because I have noticed a couple times, and I don't know what specifically, but there are some things that I really strongly disagree with that are sort of voiced by flat earthers. And those sorts of things do get repeated a lot. So in a sense, he does have a point, but I think that the main premise that he's working with is flawed because as a rule, flat earthers are operating outside of the boundaries of social, what's socially acceptable and not just repeating things, not just believing things and actually, skeptically questioning things. As a rule, that's flat earthers. And as a rule, globetards do not. Globetards, they'll look up Wikipedia and see something in there and then it must be a fact. I mean, and they'll go on repeating that forever. So main premise is totally screwed there.
I'm with you, John. And there's a lot of spurious arguments out there that flat earthers latch onto and say, as though they're being authoritative as well, but it's what people like this guy don't talk about is what is interesting. They can make videos all day about what dumb flat earthers say. I could do that quite easily just reading my Twitter timeline. But it's the subjects that a lot of us do say that these guys don't cover that speaks volumes to me.
Exactly. And that's another thing too is one of the other things that there's a huge straw man, and I get this comment all the time. It's like, why can't I look across and see Europe from New York?
Oh my God.
No clue. They just do not understand angular size or angular size reduction. Of course, angular size reduction doesn't exist in their book, period. Right? You could never admit that ever, or their whole model goes right down the tubes.
Yeah, because it's the science guy that came out, and that was one of his proofs, wasn't it? I can't even remember his name. Was the science guy?
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye, that's it. I obviously blotted it out of my brain.
Yep.
But that was one of his proofs, or maybe it was DeGrasse as well. But it's like, why can't I see the Eiffel Tower? It's like, oh my God, day one.
No doubt.
Really?
Okay, so let's continue on and let's hear his first point here.
If you're a regular person and you haven't seen my other 2 Flat Earth videos, you may want to check those out first for a little bit of context. But if you're a flat earther yourself, don't bother. I'll be speaking directly to you throughout this video. Let's begin. Number 1, one extremely problematic side effect of taking the globe and flattening it out into a plane is that gravity makes no sense, and there is no reason for things to fall to the ground. All objects accelerate towards the ground at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's an indisputable fact. And it is also an indisputable fact that any acceleration requires a force to produce it. This is how cars drive, planes fly, people walk, cats jump. It's how literally all motion works. Even charlatans like the globe busters accept at least this much, which is why they go off on their rants about magnetic magic, as you may have seen in my previous video. But quite comically, most flat earthers don't even do this. Most of you address this problem by simply listing two words: density and buoyancy. Well, I hate to break it to you guys, but these are not forces. Forces are vectors. They have a magnitude, which means a numerical amount, and a direction, which means they have to point somewhere. Density is simply mass per unit volume, or how much matter sits in a particular space. It doesn't point anywhere. And buoyancy is simply a measurement of an object's tendency to float. So allow me to repeat, these are not forces. This is trivial to prove. You say that objects fall down because they are more dense than the air below them. Why down? Why not up or sideways? When you let go of a ball, there is air all around it. How does it know to fall down? Also, objects fall down when they are in a vacuum, which means there is no air below them. What's happening there? Face the facts. Things accelerate down towards the ground because of a downward force. That force is gravity, which pulls everything towards the center of the Earth, which is its center of mass. Denser things displace less dense things because gravity exists. More mass means a greater gravitational attraction. This is clearly why things that are less dense than water float on water. Again, because gravity exists. Rocks are pulled down harder than water, which is pulled down harder than air. Some of your more popular retorts to this include wondering how oceans stay on the Earth while birds and insects can fly.
Okay. Now, I have to say that, and this, there are a few things that he addresses in here that frankly, I cringe on. And, any of you that listen to this channel know, especially, with Zach or myself or, a lot of the people in FE Core, we do not dispute the existence of a downward acceleration. I mean, it's clearly there. It's obviously there. But, unfortunately for Dave, he's got his own scientists on his own side that have come out and said, well, gravity isn't a force, but you can think of it as a force, right? Well,
right. That's what I thought. Like their whole thing is it's not a force; it's an acceleration. Right. That's what they'll tell you. Oh, when it's convenient for them, it's an acceleration. But when it's convenient for them to be a force, then it's a force.
Right. And and you can get this all twisted around. Now there are some points, obviously, that we do cross over on, and as he mentioned in there, except for the globe busters, we go off on our magnetic tangent. I would say it would be more accurate to call it to our.
Didn't he call it mumbo jumbo?
Yeah, pretty much.
Were his exact words.
Yeah.
So Walter Lewin, teaching at MIT, was teaching mumbo jumbo. Dave?
Yeah, exactly.
And him thinking that gravity is pulling anything down to this Earth just shows how ignorant he is in the realm of physics. Well, gravity does not exist when there is an electric field around. Gravity only takes place in electrically neutral objects. That's it, Dave.
Well,
go back to physics class.
The whole thing for me is just ridiculous. So here's his argument, and I love how he puts just all these big words and makes it sound way like a super complex argument with big words. But more or less what he's saying is what goes up must come down. Therefore, the Earth is a spinning ball. There's the argument, right? Basically. And what I would say is, first of all, what goes up must come down is definitely a thing here. Nobody's arguing that. We've all been around long enough to know that, what goes up must come down is a thing. Okay, we're all in agreement there. But the thing is what goes up must come down is certainly not exclusive to the spinning ball Earth, right? It is not. And in fact, what goes up must come down is quite the opposite of what you would expect on a spinning ball Earth, right? Because of centrifugal force, you would expect things to fly off at a right angle to the axis at 1,000 miles an hour, but that's not what we get, okay? And so the thing is, what goes up must come down works perfectly fine on flat Earth. We don't need this mystical force of gravity to keep things stuck to the earth. And what is it that causes them to fall down instead of up or sideways? Well, we don't have to have an answer for that, okay? Because we know the earth doesn't have curvature. We know that it's not in motion. So we know that it's not a spinning ball. We know that for sure. And so there must be something else. What is that something else? Well, yeah, I think it is the static electric charge of the earth that causes a downward tendency for dense objects. That's all that you need, is that tendency. And so you've got density and buoyancy that come into effect here. Yes, indeed you do. But it's not necessary for us to have an explanation for this. Again, measure the earth. That's geometry. If you measure the earth for curvature, there is none. And it is definitely not in motion. Okay, so it's not a spinning ball. To point to things falling to the earth as proof that it's a spinning ball is so non sequitur, just such nonsense. And again, what's so funny to me about this is the fact that it's the last thing you'd expect on a spinning ball earth. What goes up must come down. That shouldn't happen. And the fact of the matter is it does. And so gravity is something that they had to come up with in order to like patch over this major flaw in their model.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. And, Zach and I and a good friend of mine that is a PhD electrical engineer professor at a major university in Europe, have been, discussing this. And of course, Zach has put out some, outstanding videos. The one that was playing, what was it called? How incoherent electrostatic acceleration creates the downward vector. So in that video, we propose that, basically what is happening is there is an incoherent static electric force, right? Which is measurable, absolutely measurable. And we can track it and measure it all the way up into the atmosphere. And it is that static bias itself that gives us our up from down. Now, it also provides that nudge, that slight downward force, that slight downward acceleration that is absolutely necessary for density and buoyancy to take place. Now, there are other channels out here, guys, that vehemently disagree with us, right? I don't think I have to say who they are, but frankly, they're just not right. I don't know what else to say about it, and how they can't see it is beyond me. So that's not even a point of contention as far as I'm concerned. We all realize that there is a downward acceleration. Things do have a tendency to go down earthward, and it is not because of relative density disequilibrium. That comes after the initial downward force, okay? But going back to Professor Dave's model, the problem with it here is, and this is really the reason why flat earthers have the biggest issue with gravity, is because they're trying to take this downward acceleration and extend it out into a heliocentric model where you have suns attracting planets and planets attracting moons and moons attracting asteroids or whatever, or vehicles or anything that can orbit around or anything like that. It does not work that way. In fact, from what I've seen lately, and a lot of the flat earthers are actually doing this. They're actually doing this Cavendish experiments. And you know what? They just don't work. And even before we started doing them and found out that they don't work, we were looking, we tried to find one, online on YouTube that actually legitimately showed mass attracting mass. Well, guess what? They're not out there. And most of the teachers' assistants, the lab assistants that, always had to set these experiments up, always hated trying to do it because they could never get it to work. It was very, very iffy. And most of the time, it could be traced back to more of an electrostatic type of effect that was causing these type of attractions. Whose was it? Sly Sparkane, when he did his, right?
With the styrofoam.
With the styrofoam. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It was so blatantly obvious that it was styrofoam, which has a huge electrostatic, attraction. That's what was going on. Or, they'll be walking in and out of the room causing drafts, right? The other thing is that remember when this was done originally by Cavendish, right? He didn't get anywhere near the apparatus. He had to look at it through a pair of binoculars or a telescope or something, right? Looking at it far away. So suffice
it
it
was
to
like
say,
50 yards away in a shed. He kept it
exactly.
even so birds couldn't even get near it within so many feet. He kept it in a shed and had a window on it that he could look through.
But this is at the same time as he had huge stone walls around his shed that would obviously create their own gravity if he was following his own rules. He wouldn't go into the shed because his own body
Gravitational,
yeah.
It's so stupid, man. It really is. Because what about the shed itself, and what about the tree that's next to the shed? I mean, wouldn't that have some effect? And it is quite absurd. And the fact of the matter is, I would say very authoritatively that physical objects simply do not attract to one another unless there's magnetism involved. You can't find any experimental evidence to support that notion that mass attracts mass. And so what they'll tell you is, it has to be a giant, huge ball like the Earth. That's, gravity's such a weak force that it really has to be a giant, massive body in order for you to measure it. No. But the thing is they're assuming gravity is a thing that we must keep on the table when discussing flat Earth. So it's like, spinning ball Earth has gravity. So how do you explain gravity on flat Earth? Go. And the simple fact of the matter is, we don't need it. Gravity is not a thing. It doesn't exist. And so we don't have to use that in our argument, right? It's not a thing. Gravity is not a thing. Not saying that what goes up must come down is not a thing. Okay, there's a difference. We're saying that the warping of space-time by the massive Earth causing gravity, that isn't a thing. And one of the things that he mentioned is, well, if you drop an object in a vacuum, it still falls. So how is that possible if there's no air below it or no air above it? And the thing is again, we're talking about density. So is the stone that you dropped in a vacuum more dense than the air around it? Yeah, it absolutely is. If it's more dense than the air in a regular room, without a vacuum, surely it's more dense than the air in the vacuum, right? I mean, of course. Well,
even helium, if you were to release it into a gas chamber, and this is another hot point of contention with another group on YouTube, it will eventually settle and succumb to the downward acceleration that is there. And also, hat tip to James Richard for the super chat. He says, push a ball underwater, the deeper it goes, the more force is required. Let it loose, and a force created by the ball variable within the medium is created. The force is created even at a downward and all trajectories. Absolutely true, James. I agree with that very much. So thank you. Thank you so much for the super chat.
And is it true that it's 9.8 meters per second squared uniform across everywhere on Earth? That varies, doesn't it?
And it supposedly does, and that variance is measured by gravimeters, and that's another point of contention. But the point is yes, there are slight variances in that, and that can have to do with changes in charge potential, which do have variances. Now, one thing that's very interesting to note is that wherever there is a so-called gravitational anomaly, there is also right in that same vicinity a magnetic anomaly. So the two seem to go hand in hand. So again, this just goes back to our theory about the incoherent static dielectric static acceleration that seems to be more viable than the so-called mass attracting mass gravitational theory, which I don't buy. But the globers have to have that theory in order to be able to make planets spin around suns and all that stuff. We know that that's not possible. We know that it's literally created in a closed system, and the flat Earth is a closed system. That we're basically inside of a static charged field that is set between two plates, and one of those plates would be the Earth, and the other one would be the firmament. And there is a static. There's absolutely a static gradient that is measured at 100 volts per meter. That's been measured all the way up to 50 kilometers or 5 million volts. And who knows where it goes beyond that? Frankly, I think that at 62 miles is pretty much where the firmament is. And, there's a lot of evidence for that, by where sprites and elves, top out and electrical discharges go up there. All kinds of phenomenon happen at 62 miles. We shouldn't have to cover that again. But
so the way I understand it, Bob, is that the density and the buoyancy of an object, that's what sets in order of what material you're talking about: oil, water, a lead ball, or a hydrogen balloon, or whatever. But the direction in which it's giving it down is this measurable electrostatic force.
Yes, very much so. And that is exactly what determines up from down. And up and down are not relative. Up is up and down is earthward, period. It doesn't matter where you are. And of course, Dave is going to mention, that, well, in space, there is no up and down. It's like, well, that's because there's no space, Dave. But, that's a whole nother model.
But also, this is where they confuse themselves as well, because I love it when they show the flat Earth model or whatever. Then they've got this stick in the middle that's pointing straight down, and then on the edges they've got these angled sticks pointing straight down to where the stick in the middle is pointing straight down, because they're brainwashed into thinking that everything's attracted to the center of this Earth. But again, we're now on a flat Earth. There is no center to the Earth, so you don't have people walking around at 45-degree angles at the equator or anything on the flat Earth. They just lose themselves.
Right. Yeah, I think Vsauce put something like that in his in one of his response videos to flat Earth, where his good friend from Yeti Dynamics did the animation, and they're trying to say that flat Earth doesn't work because it has these conflicts with gravity, like what you just mentioned. And to me, that's so funny. It's absurd. It's so funny because, again, we just don't need it, man. One of the things I always like to talk about when people start talking about gravity is the whole gravitron ride at the fair thing, right? So, like, if you're at the equator, right, you're supposedly standing basically perpendicular to the axis of rotation, going around a curve at 1,000 miles an hour. Whereas at the pole, you're standing parallel with the axis of rotation, allegedly, and not spinning at all, spinning half the speed as the hour hand on a clock. So discernibly stationary. And so you would expect to have an infinitely different amount of centrifugal force at these two locations, right? So 0.0 at the pole, and whatever the centrifugal force would be at the equator, so, 1,000 miles an hour going around that curve. And somehow gravity is uniform across the board. And well,
they'll tell you
more
that
or less
things weigh slightly different, right? But,
right,
but that's not
slightly
the point.
different, right?
Not only should we be able to have it predictable, not only on daily revolutions, but when the Earth is going around and hits aphelion and perihelion, and we should be able to measure this with our accelerometers on a predictable basis. And you know what? We can't, and we don't, and they never have.
Yeah,
there's a problem there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There should be evidence of this acceleration, and you're right. It's not just going around a curve. Well, it's going around the curve of the orbital trajectory of the Earth, the orbital trajectory of the Sun around the galaxy, and then, of course, the galaxy through space. And none of that's ever been measured. And yeah, we do indeed have very, very powerful accelerometers that can detect a mouse fart from 500 miles away. But they can't detect going millions of miles an hour around curves, whatever.
Yeah, it really is ridiculous. And, sorry to, rain on your parade, Dave, but, Einstein kind of usurped the Newtonian model by saying that, no, it's not a force, because what it now is bendy space-time, right? Well, let's see anybody show me bendy space or bendy time. An actual physical demonstration. Well, you can never do that. Why? Because space is a privation and time is a concept, right? So you are talking about doing physical things, physical manipulations with a concept and a privation, which is utterly absurd. And you guys swallow this up like it's gospel. And you talk about cult-like behavior. Einstein says it, and your entire globe Earth cult, which is what it is, actually swallows it up and repeats it ad nauseum. But there is no.
How much does an hour weigh, Bob?
Oh, I don't know, about 5.5 pounds, I think.
It's no different than saying pixie dust, 1 ounce of pixie dust lets you fly for 10 hours in Neverland.
That's
you
right.
can just make up whatever you want.
Yep. So there you have it. Even Einstein has kind of eliminated that. Now, if I had to pick between the two, I would think that Newton's description would be more accurate, because at least he spoke in terms of acceleration. And acceleration is accurate. There is an acceleration, and yes, it does. They say the standard figure is 9.8 meters per second squared. I'm sure that does vary. In fact, it's been measured to vary. But I also think that we don't have anything that would allow us to really test that to any large degree. Why do I say that? Well, because if you think about 9.8 meters per second squared, well, we don't have a facility big enough, that would have to be void of air to actually track that and see, how long that keeps going. I mean, what if you theoretically had a vacuum chamber that was 1 trillion miles long, right? And it was perfectly evacuated. Would it keep accelerating? Would it finally get to the point where it got to the speed of light? When does it stop, right? When does that formula become not usable anymore?
Yeah. Wasn't it Newton that also said in the same breath as gravity that talking about the planets and sort of extraterrestrial gravity was nonsense, and he didn't want his name put to that at all.
Exactly.
Do you remember that quote?
He says it right in the beginning of the Principia, I think. He's like, the concept of planetary bodies being attached to one another by some mysterious force over thousands of miles is just absurd, is basically what he said. Yeah.
And he didn't want his name ascribed to it.
Yeah, he sure did.
Yes, he said that point blank. So there you have it. So, so there's a lot of things wrong with your gravity theory, Dave. And, you sit there and call us out, but at least we can demonstrate by experiment incoherent magnetic and incoherent static effects, which you can't with gravity. So really, who's the stupid one, Dave? Well,
but
I don't
really
know to answer that.
What goes up must come down is a law of physics that is immutable, never going to change under normal circumstances. Gravity is a theory to explain that phenomenon on a spinning ball Earth, but only on a spinning ball Earth, and it just simply isn't necessary on flat Earth. Gravity is a phantom of the spinning ball Earth theory that has never been proven, and I don't give a damn about what they found at LIGO a couple of years ago. That was a load of crap. I actually did a video on that when they found the first ever alleged gravity wave from, what was it, 3.5 billion years ago or whatever. 3.5 billion light years away, they detected a gravity wave allegedly. But really what it is, what they found is the frequency of a signal went up over time. And that's what they detected on their accelerometer. That's it.
Exactly.
Yep. And they're quoting their own guy, they convinced themselves that it was a gravity wave.
Yep. Absolutely. So also hat tip again to James Richard, who says, when the ball rises to the surface of the water, it no longer goes up. It is more dense than the air and less dense than the water, and it sits in a state of equilibrium between the two. Only thing that has changed is the medium, and that is true, because the all things being equal, the medium has changed, and now it's sitting about halfway in between that. Immerse that. The downward acceleration force that is always present, what they call gravity or whatever, is still going to be there. And again, remember, guys, and we've demonstrated this very, very clearly, without that downward acceleration force, buoyancy and density don't work. How did we demonstrate that? if you guys remember the episode, God, I'll never forget this episode, John, because you were the only one that could see where I was going, and Jeran and Iru were like making me crazy that day. But I was, I was trying to do the thought experiment with them. And, ultimately, so what I finally showed was an experiment that was done with that was done on a Vomit comet, right? A 0G plane. And it was done by a bunch of university students using a density tower. So what did they do when they went into the 0G mode, right? When they were just floating around, the guy shook it up, and the density tower, of course, would not arrange. Why wouldn't it arrange? Because it did not have any bias to give it a reference as to what direction it should arrange into, right? Now then, on another video that I didn't actually get to show that day, but Richard, Rick, Seventh Day Truth Seeker, found it. He found one where they were able to shake up a density tower, and then they pushed the nose over even a little bit more on the 0G plane, where everything went up and stuck to the top of the airplane. So in other words, they effectively reversed the effect of so-called gravity, right? So what happened then? Well, the density tower then went ahead and it rearranged, but it arranged itself in the opposite direction, going upward. So again, without that bias, without that initial bias, density and buoyancy become moot. All right. So, and again, nobody has ever denied, well, some people do deny that it's not there, but like I said, our position on this channel is that simply is not. There is a bias. There is absolutely a bias there. And, if you disagree with that, that's fine. But let's not get into shill calling, because I have definitely had enough of that.
If there was no bias, you would push the ball down into the water and the ball would stay down in the water. It wouldn't come back up because the water wouldn't displace it. The water wouldn't be heavier than that air and have to then push it up, that ball.
Exactly. There has to be
the force that's always there, or else you could put a rock out in the air and it would just sit there.
Yep.
That's,
to me,
if there is no bias, that's what would happen.
Well, and really, the position that he's taken here is comical to me, and I may not be relaying it why it's so funny to me. But the thing is, it's like this, man. Again, what goes up must come down is the last thing you'd expect on Spinning Ball Earth. And yet somehow they have twisted it into exclusive proof of Spinning Ball Earth. I mean, that's one hell of a magic trick. I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy that could relay what they're doing properly, but like, how do you do that? How do you take something that is mutually exclusive with your theory, and presto changeo, now it's exclusive proof of your theory? Like, how do you do that?
Well, yeah, that was my first question. When my mom said we live on a ball that's spinning, I was like, well, then why don't we go flying off? That was my very first question. I was like, that makes no sense.
When you were a kid,
yeah, it doesn't seem to add up much.
but to somehow present that as exclusive proof of your theory, like, how do you do that? Because it doesn't. I mean, what the crap?
Well,
I don't know.
When we're NASA,
right?
It looks so fake.
It's real so good engineering.
Real good engineering.
All right.
That's number one.
Okay, that's number one. Let's go ahead and move on to point number two, and we will go from there. I can honestly sit on this topic all day long, but
we really could, yeah.
But we'll move on. Okay, so here we go, guys. Whoops, let me hit the thing. There we go.
Maybe we should make it a 10-week.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I was just saying, maybe we should make it a 10-week series.
Okay. All right, here we go. Point number two here.
Angry, and instead of answering simple questions, you just link me to a bunch of videos made by con men. Well, I'm sorry, friends. Those people are doing incorrect math, or lying, or both, and they are counting on the fact that you won't do any math at all to check up on them. 8 inches per mile squared is not a valid way to measure Earth's curvature. If you understood math, you would immediately see that this squared on miles is totally out of place. That's because this is a parabolic approximation. This is for doing calculations with a parabola. It's possible that you remember this shape from middle school algebra, but I wouldn't be surprised if you don't. As you can see, the Earth is not shaped like this. So where does it come from, and why do people use it? It comes from the Flat Earth Bible, Zetetic astronomy, and Flat Earth priests use it because they know it's not accurate. It gives them incorrect values that they can use to claim that they shouldn't be able to see something when in fact they totally should. There are dozens of videos on YouTube demonstrating this, several of which reference the actual formula that actually describes Earth's curvature, which as you can see requires trigonometry. Stop blindly repeating what you hear on Flat Earth videos and learn some basic math so that you can do these calculations for yourself.
All right. Well, now, first of all, you guys will notice one thing that was conspicuously missing, and that is that Dave did not do any of the equations. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why he didn't do that. That seems a little bit odd to me, but I'm going to show you why he didn't do those calculations. And let me go back and redo the whole screen share thing. Hang on just a second. Doop.
It's actually in Chambers Mathematics Dictionary. It's not actually 8 inches, it's 7.999. Yeah. something like that, yeah. But it's not Robotham. And he's right, it is a parabola thing. You know, where have you been, Dave? We've been talking about this for, the past 5 years out of 6.
And it's good up to like 1,000 miles or something.
At least, yeah, you can put it in comparison against numerous other calculations, and it's good at least to 500. Well, further than we can see, put it that way.
Well, and I would say that Rowbotham's formula is a hell of a lot better than the alternative that you find in the school textbooks, which is, well, crickets, right? It's nothing. And
it requires you to input a radius of the Earth. So how did you work that one out personally, Professor Dave?
Right.
All right. So let's get to
what I would say for hip pocket calculations that are good up to a few hundred miles is really all we need. You can't see that far. Yeah.
It's good to a lot bigger distance than that. All right. So here's the deal right here. Here's my chart. You should be able to see this. And what I've done here is I've taken 3 different sources. Our 8 inches per mile squared is the one in the center. The AutoCAD calculation is the one on the right. And I'm not exactly sure how they do their calculation. But obviously, since it's used for engineering, it's probably good enough for government work. Okay. And then on the left-hand side is the Sagitta. Now, this is the methodology that he put the formula out for, okay? So if you take on the first mile and you calculated the Sagitta, that means that the Sagitta is saying that it's 8.24 inches, okay? Versus the 8 inches for the the standard formula that we use in AutoCAD is 8 inches per mile. For 2 miles, it's 32.31 versus 32 versus 32.01. For 10 miles, 66.69 versus 66.67 versus 66.68. Now we're talking about 100th of a foot difference here, guys. And what is that cracking?
Deal breaker. I think that was my headset. I'm sorry. I'm like my phone's plugged in and I'm sort of half off the thing here and half on it. So
okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem. So basically what they're doing is they're saying, you stupid flat earthers, your 8 inches per mile squared is used for a parabola. And yes, that's true. But the thing is up to at least 1,000 miles. Let's look at 1,000 miles here versus the what your formula would show, right? And the formula that Dave, put on his little diagram is 125.62 miles of curvature for 1,000 miles. At 8 inches per mile squared, it's 126.26 miles of curvature for 1,000 miles. And AutoCAD says 128.38. So interestingly enough, the 8 inches per mile squared is actually even closer than the AutoCAD engineering software. Isn't that interesting? But let's look at these two figures, 125.62, 125.26. We are talking about just a shade over a quarter of a mile in curvature difference. Now, in the
over
grand
a
scheme,
distance that none of us can see or could see beyond P900, P9000.
Jay Tolomeo got 1,000. Yeah, he got 1,000 miles. But the point is like let's go. Where does it really start getting inaccurate? Let's go to 3959. Well, it's pretty inaccurate there because over 3959, 8 inches per mile squared shows up at 1979 miles, right? Oh, well, that can't be right. And then 3959. So you can see basically what's going on here is it's good for all practical purposes up to 1,000 miles. And really, even if you go to 1,500 miles, and take the worst case scenario, 295.17, that's really still only 11 miles difference of curvature over 15
See,
miles.
I would have to agree with AutoCAD at the 3959 because it would be
3959. Because if you go from the North Pole 3959 out,
right,
then
it
should be a drop of 3959 down. And this is what when I did calculations on this is what highlighted the anomaly of the 8 inches per square. So it makes me question the Sanjita model.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. There are several different ways to derive this. Okay. But every time somebody says, well, yours is wrong, and this is the way it's supposed to be done, they never actually do a calculation, because if they did do a calculation, they would see that it compares very, very, very closely to whatever they're doing. And, we use typically for observations at the outside, maybe up to 100 miles, but, 25 to 50 miles is a good, flat earth demonstration. For all practical purposes, it's nuts on for that, right? But they want to invalidate the entire formula because they say it's for a parabola, and therefore it's just wrong. It doesn't matter that it may only be a fraction of an inch or a fraction of a foot off. To them, well, it's got to be right on the money, or it's not. And yet, you're right. Look at AutoCAD versus the Sagitta. And by the way, there's a couple different ways you can do the Sagitta as well. And there was a guy that pointed that out to me one day, and I should probably make those adjustments in this. But I'm not saying that this is wrong, but there is a different way to do it, and it changes when you get into out past a certain distance. But the point here is, guys, is that up to 1,000 miles, these three are less than a quarter of a mile difference. I mean, come on.
They're picking off the low hanging fruit. Basically, they're using big words like parabola, and which most people watching it are not going to know what he's talking about. But this chart shows it all. Basically, it's minuscule.
Well, he's just really, at this point, he's arguing for the sake of arguing against us, right? Because he's not saying that the numbers are all that wrong. He's just saying it's not mathematically perfectly correct. And so,
by introducing the parabola thing,
right? You got to get those big words in there. You got to put the big words in there and confuse people.
Right. Doesn't know what he's talking about are going to be like, "Ooh, yeah, parabola. Oh, that's a big word."
Also, hat tip again to James Richard, who says, I guess I'm saying I don't see any evidence of a downward bias, only relative density, like a ball in water. James, I get that, and I knew full well what you were saying there, but I am telling you that there is massive evidence to indicate otherwise. And not only that, all the calculations that you would do for any type of projectile motion, if you don't have that downward force calculation, even the math doesn't come out right. So I mean, not only is it blatantly and obviously there, but again, you have to think about this logically. Why down, right? Why down? Even if it's in a complete vacuum chamber, right? Why does it always go down? Because there is something that is causing a downward bias. That's why. Otherwise, it could just as easily go to the left or go to the right or go up towards 10 o'clock or whatever. But the fact is that there is a preferred direction, and you have to ask yourself why. And it's not because you can't simply explain it away by saying, Well, because things below it are less dense. Well, in a vacuum chamber, the density is the same below it as it is above it, right? Or, if I'm standing on a ladder and the air below me is more dense than the air above me, and I step off the ladder, well, then why wouldn't I fall up? Well, obviously, because I'm more dense than the air around me. I get that, right? But that's the whole point, is that there is something that is causing a preferred direction of down. And that's something that absolutely has to be figured in, or the ballistics calculations don't work. And like I said, it was demonstrated perfectly when we were able to, show on the Vomit Comet, when they pushed it over so that things actually went upwards toward the top. Then what that essentially did is that emulated a gravitational force going upwards. And the density tower then rearranged itself in opposite order, going up up towards the top, which tells you point blank there's got to be an initial force there. And that, I don't know what else to say about that. To me, it's pretty obvious. So,
yeah, they just reversed they overpowered the downward force when the plane started heading for the ground. But I saw a Globe guy in the chat screaming in full caps, "The Earth is round, you idiot," or whatever he said. It's like round, spherical. You don't even
get your terms. Get your terms right.
Yeah, we agree it is round, but circle around, just not spherical.
Yeah.
Really quickly, getting back to the point that we were talking about for Professor Dave, I just think it speaks volumes that indeed this 8 inches per mile squared hip pocket calculation does come from zetetic astronomy, from Dr. Robotham, but not really.
Hey, John,
actually,
John,
yes.
John, can you I've been drinking too much coffee. I got to run to the bathroom. So can you keep the show going for a minute? And I'll be right back.
I will do my damnedest. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
He actually shows his work in the book that it wasn't him that came up with the 8 inches per mile squared. It was a mathematician buddy of his actually did. And he shows his work in terms of how he came up with it. And he actually said it was like 7.998 or something like that inches. But yeah, but that figure comes from a flat Earth book, not from a sort of standard science globe Earth mythology book. And that really does speak volumes to the point that it's flat earthers that are telling you, how you're going to measure for this curvature, not the globe earthers. And I guess you're from the UK, Mr. Savage. Did they ever teach you when you were a child growing up in the school system how you would go about measuring for that curvature, or what the expected curvature should be over a given distance?
No, in a word, nothing like that. But they obviously, Chambers' Mathematical Dictionary, I think it was where I found it, they obviously took that on board as well, because they have it listed in there as 7.96 something blah 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 meters miles squared. Yeah. So it and as the chart that we're looking at shows, it's almost identical across the board, right up until way past where we can see. So like you say, he's just arguing for the sake of arguing and trying to bamboozle ignorant people who with big words like parabola and etc. It's
Well, yeah, and if you're trying to hide something from the world, it's a lot more intelligent to throw out a big giant equation that they're never going to even try to punch the numbers into to figure out, instead of a small one like 8 inch per mile squared that a middle schooler could figure out and then go look and say, hey, wait a minute, where's the curve? Because I never knew the Earth curved as much as it did until I heard those numbers.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the fact that he's arguing against that shows me that he's just going to argue against everything we say, because it's really not that far off. It really isn't. It's a good hip pocket calculation to use. I mean, until you start getting into the refraction thing, and of course that muddies the waters. But so the fact that he's arguing this proves to me that he's never going to concede a valid point when we make it. And that's the problem that we have with globetards is that, okay, so you're not going to agree with us on everything, but surely you can agree with us on something simple like this. No, he won't. He's just going to argue with everything we say because he knows that that's what he has to do. His job is just to make sure that the people who are clinging to the ball have some smart expert they can point to that claims to have debunked everything, and they don't really understand what he's saying because it's so complicated with big words that they feel comfortable with it. But that doesn't
it's a
work for
blanket.
us. Yeah,
He's going to double down. He's going to double down. But the difference is that I can show my 5-year-old, at the beach. I can show them the Isle of Portland 30 miles away and say, okay, 30 miles away, how far would that be below the curve? And they'd be able to do it in their head, as opposed to the Sanjita, whatever, formula there, which includes cos or cosine or whatever it was. You're not going to carry around with you a scientific calculator and a 5-year-old be able to work it out, but a 5-year-old can easily work out 8 inches per mile squared.
Yeah. It really is pretty easy. And okay, I'm back, guys.
And one thing Dave never did either was see, they said that this shouldn't be visible, with their calculation. Well, here's our calculation, and it says we should see that much. He didn't show any pictures that people say we see too far. He just said we don't use the right calculation.
No, yeah, he's about to go into that, and of course, we're going to tear that one apart too. So let us move forward with it, and hopefully you can still hear this. Let me know if you don't hear it, but otherwise, let's continue on.
Number 3. All flat earthers say the same 2 things about water. The first is water doesn't curve, and the second is water finds its own level. The second phrase is completely meaningless, so the fact that you all say that exact thing verbatim is just one of the many demonstrations that you all blindly repeat what you hear without giving it a moment's thought. As for the first phrase, stating that water doesn't curve is at least a coherent thought. However, it is dead wrong. Put a drop of water on a piece of wax paper or a leaf. What does it look like? A freaking sphere. Isn't that something? In your haste to mindlessly parrot what you heard from flat earth priests about water, you forgot to look at water. Water curves, my friends. Look at this curved meniscus. Look at these waves. Water curves all the time. Water is not magic. It is subject to influence by external forces, just like all other matter. With a spherical water droplet, that's the electromagnetic force. Water molecules make hydrogen bonds with one another, which in this context we refer to as cohesive forces. That's why water has a very high surface tension. And that's why a water droplet remains spherical, so that it can maximize the number of hydrogen bonds that are formed and keep the system at the lowest energy possible. So clearly and indisputably, water curves. In this example, it is due to the electromagnetic force. It is therefore quite easy to understand that it can curve under the influence of any force, including gravity. The oceans conform to the curvature of the earth just like the land does, and for the same reason. This is why saying that water finds its own level is absolutely meaningless. You think that level means flat, as though on the globe model, water should just magically project into space at some arbitrary angle. In fact, level just means as close to the center of the earth as possible. What's most hilarious is that even in the tool called the level, which only works because gravity exists, there is a curved bubble right in there. If the bubble is curved, what is the liquid, which is mostly water, doing around that bubble? It curves. It is absolutely astonishing how the things you repeat from Flat Earth videos are incompatible with even the most trivial everyday observations. You should acknowledge that. No.
Oh, boy. Well, he sure showed us, didn't he?
We should acknowledge that. Where to
So
start?
now the electromagnetic forces aren't mumbo jumbo. So now they're real here. Because didn't he just say like a few minutes ago that the electromagnetic forces we talk about are mumbo jumbo? And now he turns around 2 things later and says that here's the electromagnetic forces.
It's describing surface tension.
Yep. Whoops. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Well, what he's doing is, man, he's taking one argument, about water finding its level, and then taking a whole different application to it and to debunk it, right? So when we say water's finding its level, we're talking about large, massive bodies of water being level. No matter how far you measure for it, you're not finding curvature in masses of water. But what he's talking about is a little droplet of water or a little bubble inside of a level. That's not what we're talking about, man. Come on. I mean, do we really have to go this far into it? We're arguing semantics here.
Everything should be scalable. You know, if they can show us a tiny droplet ball of water, then they should be able to show us a stadium droplet ball, you know, something the size of a football stadium being a sphere and water. It's just nonsense.
Right. I mean, this is such a straw man. I really, I mean, do we have to even respond to this? Because I mean, any flat earther worth their salt knows that that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about droplets of water. We're talking about rivers, I mean, oceans, large lakes. Certainly not a drop of water. You know?
Well, no, we shouldn't have to, but let's do. All right. So when we say water finds its level, I mean, yes, it is even used in levels, water levels. It's used widely in construction. Why? Because it does find its level, even if it's not level on the bottom, like this little diagram on the right here shows, right? So absolutely. In that,
but they define level differently to us, though, don't they? Because
they define level as 90 degrees tangent to the center of the earth.
Center of the earth,
curve
exactly.
Level.
So
curve
unless
level.
you can agree, I mean, is it level or is it curved? Is it level or, I mean, unless you can agree on the lexicon used, then you just...
Well, they want you to believe that there's a tangent point instead of a tangent line. It's like, no, not a tangent point, because a tangent point is meaningless. It has to be a tangent line. And when you are trying to compare that to the center of a sphere, all it can be is a tangent point, which is non sequitur, right? Doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, now, you know, like I said, these days is they're even saying that, well, the tangent point where the earth meets the sky is not visible, even if it's only supposed to be, you know, 50 feet away or a mile away or 3 miles away. They say you can't see it no matter what, which is utterly retarded, right?
Well, they have to, don't they? They've got to the point now where they have to literally start making these absurd claims because they're being backed into a corner. It's like Ball Earth pilots saying, you know, I'm flying straight and level, but I'm actually flying around the ball. It's just gibberish.
Yes. So anyway, so the other things that they will claim, oh, well, look at when you pour water at the top of a glass and it bows over the top. It's like, yeah, that's called a meniscus, and that is a product of surface tension, right? That has nothing to do with gravity acting on it as an external force to cause it to curve. That simply doesn't happen, you know? So it's just complete horse hockey that they even say that, you know, period. And then we go back to here. Yeah, we've got the water level there. And then we've got the surface tension and cohesion, which tells you basically the specifications of the surface tension, which tells you that water can only bow like that at a very, 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 very small droplet of water. Yeah. Exactly. When the flat earthers talk about it, we're talking about a very large scale application. And that large scale application would be all the way across the horizon, or, you know, even a foot. If you go a foot, you're not going to get any bubble or anything like that to be a foot, you know, not a bubble, but you're not going to get water to have a foot across the top of it, you know, as a meniscus, right? Well,
I see what you're saying.
But you see what I'm saying, right?
I do. Well, and what it is, man, when we go around making claims, and maybe we should take this as a lesson, you know, collectively, not to use absolutes in our arguments, because if we say water always finds its level, water never curves, those are absolutes. So you've got people like Professor Dave that are going to scour the world trying to find the one instance where water does curve or where water doesn't find its level, and so that he can use that as a ammunition against us. But of course, it's not in the context of or the spirit of what our argument was. It's just literally an example that he found where water does indeed curve, or it fails to find its level, or whatever the case is. So maybe we should, and I run into this all the time. where if you don't put forth all your necessary caveat statements and you don't say things exactly precisely how you mean them, then they're going to come back and find,
cherry pick you. Yep.
Exactly. And that's all that he's doing. And so, yeah, just note to self, everybody, just make sure you put your caveat statements and explain everything to the most tedious of details.
Yes, very much
Yeah.
so.
And I thought at least one troll would have made something about the part in my video where I bend water using electrostatics.
Mhm.
But it really seems they want nothing to do with electrostatics. The trolls do not want to talk about that at all. They just gloss over that. I thought that was going to be ammunition for them. I got a lot of shit from flat earthers, but not one troll has ever used that as like, see, even flat earthers say water bends. They just
right.
Well, and
exactly.
the other thing that's really funny about it also, Zach, is Dave goes on to make the statement that yes, even gravity will bend water when it's in a gravitational field. Dave, show me a gravitational field.
Yeah,
I would love to see that, because there is no such thing. You cannot demonstrate one. You cannot manipulate a gravitational field because you have no idea what it is. At least our idea of a gravitational field, we have an idea of what it is, and also we have an idea on how to manipulate it. And like I said, if we ever get the Zach two-ball test going, we're going to actually show that. And I don't know if you even know about that, John, but John, are you familiar with the test that the
Boyd Bushman?
Boyd Bushman, the Lockheed engineer, did, where he was talking about how he encased one magnet in a container, and then another. He had a neodymium magnet encased in one container, and then another container that was similar that just had like metal in it, and that he dropped it, and the one with the magnet in it fell at a considerably slower rate. Do you remember that? Me ever showing that video?
I think you linked that. You sent me the link a few weeks ago, and I did watch the video, but we never did anything with it, right?
Yeah, well, we actually have that experiment ready to go if we ever find a place to actually drop it. But and that, of course, is and I'm pretty sure that it's going to drop at a significantly different rate than the other ball, which of course has exactly the same weight, the same external dimensions, all that stuff. And then you have to wonder what the ball earthers are going to say then, because now all of a sudden we've got a magnetic field that is going to be changing the so-called gravitational field, which we are asserting is a component of magnetics, right? It's magnetic and electrostatic. Everything is electricity. So everything that comes out of those, and of course the ether would be the third component of that. And when that changes and that drop rate changes, you have to wonder what they're going to say about that. But we'll have to get to that when we get to it.
Yeah.
So
indeed.
Yeah, it's insane to say the least. All right, so let's go back to the thing, Chrome tab. Let me get back to this. Share audio, and okay, so let's pick up on not a Professor Dave's next point here, number 4. Here we go.
Number 4. You are all quite perplexed about how Earth's atmosphere can exist next to the vacuum of space. This one is rather amusing, because what's happening is that since you have no science education, your only context for the word vacuum is a vacuum cleaner. And again, because you have no science education, none of you understand how a vacuum cleaner works, which is a problem because you seem to think that outer space is a vacuum cleaner. Let's take a moment and clear this up. A vacuum is any region where there is no stuff. Here, there is stuff, like air. In space, there is no stuff, or at least very, very close to no stuff. Space is essentially empty. That's a vacuum. It is not a thing that sucks. Vacuums don't suck. Everyone say it with me together. Vacuums.
You suck.
No, but you
Earth's
do.
atmosphere displays a gradient because gravity exists. There's a lot of atmosphere right near the ground, and then as you rise, because fewer and fewer molecules will have enough kinetic energy to go so high, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner until there's none left. Then you're in space. It's that simple. Number 5.
No,
one of your favorite.
It's not that simple, Dave.
Wow. So that's just it. It's that simple.
Yeah. It's like no.
Second law of thermodynamics out the window. Forget it. Doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. All right. So
Don't you love how he tells us what we believe and what we think of things and how we just don't understand certain things? I mean, he really does just blanket all flat earthers as one uniform entity, doesn't he?
How
Yeah.
none of us have science educations.
Right.
How many professors, PhDs, and everything else? I mean, even I've got a science degree.
Yeah, got news for you, Dave. There's a lot of degreed professionals that are flat earthers, and more coming every day because they're realizing that it's the truth. Okay,
but do you really need a degree to realize that what he's saying is bullshit?
You don't. In fact, a degree for most people is a hindrance, because that's just, when we talk about indoctrination, you've been through an indoctrination system, and that will tend to stick with most people, and they will tend to fall back on that, because they don't, they never were taught to think for themselves, and therefore they can't logically think through it, but they can say, my physics teacher told me this, so this must be the way that it is. And that's
it's little boxes. They're put into these little boxes that they're not allowed to think outside of. I never took a physics class ever, and I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah,
I taught myself.
One thing I've learned not to do is do not try to categorize flat earthers, and certainly don't put us all in the same bucket, because I'll tell you, flat earthers are each unique as a snowflake.
Yes,
for real.
I did 4 years of learning how to talk to women and having a fantastic time playing rugby and everything else. And I happened to walk away with a Bachelor of Science degree, but that's just coincidental.
Yeah, I hear you. So, all right. So first of all, he thinks he is under the severe misinterpretation that gravity alone can hold down the atmosphere from a 14.7 psi or 760 torr pressure to a 10 to the negative 17th torr pressure. Now, we've covered this a million times, guys, and here's the facts are very simple. Here we have the Sandusky, Ohio, NASA Glenn space facility, which I think they renamed to Buzz Aldrin or something like that. They renamed it to one of the liars.
Drunkle Buzz.
Yep, Drunkle Buzz. And so, and in this chamber, it provides an ultimate empty chamber vacuum capability of 4 times 10 of less than 4 times 10 to the negative 6 torr, using a combination of roughing pumps and high vacuum equipment, blah, 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 blah. Now, this is the most powerful vacuum that we can generate here on good old plain Earth. And we're looking at this 4 times 10 to the negative 6th. And if we go back here and look at our little torr chart, let's blow this up a little bit bigger. We're talking about an area right in here.
You're not sharing.
Oh, crap. Thank you for doing that. Hang on just a second. I'll go share screen, and screen 2, share. Okay, now I'm sharing. Sorry, guys. All right, so here we have the vacuum chart, okay? And he said that it was 4 times 10 to the negative 6th, which is right about here. So instead of 0.000001, the Sandusky actually is a little less vacuum than that at 0.000004, okay? So it's right here in the middle of the high vacuum scale. And as we can see, we are nowhere near surface of the moon or deep space out in outer space. There's a huge difference between there on the order of trillions of times more. Now, of course, he would probably come back and say, oh, that's ridiculous. And he'd pull a Wolfie and he would say something like, well, I can put in 60 pounds of pressure in my tire, in my 30-pound tire, and that, it seems to work okay. And look, I've doubled the pressure there. It's like, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but the magic happens when you flip it around in the other direction. Here's why. Because if it was so simple that you could just do that, and have it hold with just a little extra rubber on that tire, then why does the Sandusky facility have to have 8-foot thick steel and concrete walls to stop the vacuum from drawing air through the facility? Right? And they literally say that it without that thickness of steel and concrete, it will literally draw air through. So can you imagine what kind of force is at work there? Right? Now,
And that's what, 10 to the -7 that they can get to? 10 to the 6, something
10
like
to the
that?
negative, yeah, 10 to the, actually it's 1 times or 4 times 10 to the -6. So it'd be 0.000004 torr. Okay.
So essentially what they're saying is that in order to keep this 10 to the -17 vacuum away from our atmosphere, they would need something infinitely larger and thicker and stronger than the Sandusky setup.
Yeah, it would probably take something like, 50 feet of solid steel, if you're going to keep out a 10 to the -17 torr vacuum. Right. And of course, the Apollo missions, they even told you straight up, I played the clip last week where they're talking about if you weren't careful, you would poke right through the aluminum coating of the LEM, right? And the LEM, they're literally saying they could poke right through the 3 sheets aluminum foil thick outer shell of the LEM. And it's like, really? So that's going to hold out a 10 to the -11th torr? No, there's no way. And there is no way that gravity is going to hold out a 10 to the negative anything as far as vacuum, right? The vacuum forces are enormous that are outside in so-called outer space.
How old is this video that he'd made? Is this an old one?
Not old. It's I don't know.
Because I'm pretty sure, didn't they say that Earth's atmosphere now extends past the moon?
Yeah, that's stupid shit.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. We have another one of these immutable laws of physics that cannot be avoided anywhere in the known universe except for by spinning ball Earth. And that law of physics is you just simply cannot have a pressurized environment with pressurized stuff in it adjacent to a vacuum environment without some solid structure separating the two. Okay, you just can't. Like, if you have a tire full of air and you poke a hole in it, the air in the tire is going to expand outward until it's gone, until there's equilibrium reached. If you didn't have a tire at all, there would be nothing to pressurize. Now, I'm not saying that there's necessarily a container or a dome. What I'm saying is the spinning ball Earth concept, again, falls flat on its face when you juxtapose it with these immutable laws of nature. So, again, to say that, to respond to that I don't know what a vacuum is isn't a valid response. We need to really get down to brass tacks on this one. How is it that we have this 14.7 pounds per square inch pressure here near sea level, and yet when you go past the Kármán line, you have this very, very strong vacuum? What is separating the two? How is that contained? And the answer is Ball Earth fails. Ball Earth sucks. Ball Earth is dead.
We all need to go and get some science education.
True.
Clearly.
Yeah, that's true. Because the vacuum cleaner in space is, it's too strong.
Yeah, because it's Mega Maid up there. That's all we know is Mega Maid.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's absurd, and they'll always obfuscate. They will never address that directly. Or even Dave, I would settle for an explanation as to how the LEM, with a thickness of aluminum foil and Reynolds wrap or aluminum foil and mylar, right? That is something like 5/1000ths of an inch thick. How in the hell is that holding out 10 to the -17 torr vacuum?
Real good engineering.
That's real good engineering.
But wasn't it Val Allen himself who said that the LEM would have to be 6 inches of lead, or 6 foot of lead thick, or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, logistically, that's doable, right?
Yeah, that's just to keep
Yeah,
out
he also said the
radiation.
rocket would have to be bigger than the Empire State Building.
Empire State Building, yeah.
Yeah, von Braun said it would have to
Yeah,
be something
Werner
like
von Braun.
300 times bigger than the Saturn V.
Just to carry the fuel.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
of course, they don't mention that, and that's von Braun's own words, right, in
Yeah.
his book.
Because you have a catch-22, right? The further you go, the more fuel you have to carry. The more fuel you carry, the heavier you are, right? So you need more fuel, and then you get heavier. So it's about like it's a catch-22, and basically, I think what von Braun said, it would be practically just unobtainable. It would have to be so large, right? Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Mm.
All right, so let's move on from that one because the vacuum kills ball Earth. Period. I mean,
It really does.
kills it in every way, shape, and form. You think that you are so smug and you've got that, but you don't, Dave. You're dead wrong, and you can't even demonstrate, how gravity could possibly do that. And I would be satisfied just showing me how three levels of Reynolds wrap would be able to hold out that kind of vacuum pressure, differential, when just a few pounds of vacuum differential will crush a tanker, So it's like, nah, ain't buying it. Sorry. Let's move on. Here we go. Oops. Get to the right place.
Little gotcha challenges is to request that we demonstrate how water can stick to a ball spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. The implication is that water and everything else should fly off of it, like a child getting thrown from a merry-go-round. Well, it's very cute that you get overwhelmed by numbers with 4 digits in them, but in actuality, the Earth spins once per day. One time in 24 hours. Get on a merry-go-round and have someone push you one time around over 24 hours. Not a very thrilling ride, is it? The issue is that the Earth is really, really big. So if instead of using rotational velocity to describe a rotating body, like a normal person, you try to use linear tangential velocity, you're going to get a pretty big number. But to be honest, it's still not really that big. Planes go more than half that speed, and sitting on a plane at cruising altitude with no turbulence is just like sitting on a chair on the ground. Flat Earth priests cite these big velocities associated with the Earth and the solar system purely for shock value, and you're falling for it. Stop doing that. Furthermore, this little water doesn't stick to a ball challenge is the strawiest straw man that was ever made of straw. The Earth is huge. It generates an enormous gravitational field. That's why everything sticks to it. A ball is very tiny. It does not generate an enormous gravitational field, so things don't stick to it. Also, unless you're doing this in space, the ball must be very close to the Earth, which, as we just said, generates an enormous gravitational field. So when water drips off the ball onto the ground, your desired demonstration of gravity fails because gravity exists. Stop asking for ridiculous and impossible demonstrations like having to build an Earth-sized object to show you how water sticks to something as big as the Earth.
Well, Dave, fortunately for us, we don't have to do that because we can use what? Math. Something that you obviously don't do.
His answer for everything is gravity, isn't it?
Well, it always is, right?
It's gravity.
That's so funny how he's like, all this gravity is getting in the way of him proving gravity somehow. Wow.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens. All right. So here's the thing. Oops. Let's see. Where is it? Let me get to the right place. No, I think I have them backwards. Bad me. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. Oh, you know what? I need to share this with sound. But this particular little video right here demonstrates that if we look at it as simple RPM, it's actually the Earth rotates at 0.000694 RPM per day, right? Well, that's not a whole lot. That's pretty slow. But he says, well, when you calculate that tangential velocity, it's a pretty big number. Yeah, it's much more than just that, Dave. That 1,037.5 mile per hour edge velocity produces stresses that are so unbelievably high that it just is, well, not survivable for the Earth. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Now,
when the tennis ball spins that fast, it just shreds.
Yeah.
I like that, how he showed that tennis ball spinning there. Like, this is what happens if a tennis ball spins 1,000. No, because they've done that experiment. They showed a tennis ball spinning that fast, and it just tore the whole thing to shreds. It couldn't even hold itself together.
Yeah, because the edge velocity is what's important there, not the rotations per minute.
That's exactly right. It is the edge velocity that does it. And this has actually been calculated. In fact, a gentleman who I have his PowerPoint presentation, we're actually going to do a whole show on that, because he went through all the trouble of not only showing the impossibility of the Earth being able to handle these edge velocity stresses, but he shows it, you know, even if it was made out of the toughest material, the very fastest that we could possibly spin without the edge velocity literally ripping us apart. Right? This has all been calculated. This is a video by Rockets Push Off Air, and I highlighted this many moons ago, several years ago. And again, the edge velocity is everything. When you get a flywheel that is spinning, right? The bigger that flywheel is, the faster the edge velocity goes, the more stresses you have that are acting upon it. So what he does in here is he will find, he uses a demonstration put out by Rolls-Royce. And I think, yeah, this is it. Actually, I'm actually going to play this. Can you guys hear this? Can you hear that?
No.
Oh, shit. I did it again. I swear. I'll be glad when I get this little thing fixed.
You're fired, Bob.
I know. Video file. Oops. What am I doing here? Let's try this again. Share screen. Chrome tab. There we go. Share audio. Okay. Let's see if you can hear this. Whoops. Probably if I unmute.
And they're about to destroy
There we go. Yep.
to make sure it never occurs. These 24 titanium fan blades suck air into the maw of this A380 engine. Each blade is 1 meter in length and weighs 15 kilograms. Lightweight, but super strong. When the engine is roaring along at full throttle, the blades spin at almost 3,000 revolutions per minute. The centrifugal force at the tip of each blade is equivalent to the weight of a 110-ton locomotive. If one of these were...
Did you get that? The centrifugal force at the end of each blade is the equivalent of a 110-ton locomotive. All right? Now,
wow.
I will tell you this. The edge velocity of this motor is right at 1,000 miles an hour. Edge velocity of Earth, right at 1,000 miles an hour. So it is irrelevant that it's going 0.000694 RPM. What matters is the edge velocity and the stresses, the immense stresses that are brought on by that fantastically slow speed or that fantastically high edge velocity for a sphere are point blank impossible even for the most durable metal or material we could ever have. So let's keep watching this.
to break off and escape into the engine, it could wreak unimaginable destruction to the plane. That's why Rolls-Royce engineers are about to conduct an engine failure test. They're going to intentionally cause one of the fan blades to break off at full speed in order to prove that the engine enclosure can contain the damage without letting any metallic fragments escape. In the process, they will totally trash this $15 million engineering marvel, a small price to pay when the lives of over 550 people could be at stake. A super slow-motion camera captures every moment in excruciating detail. The blades are striped to make visual measurement easier. When the fan is spinning at full speed, engineers send a signal to explosive bolts at the base of the multicolored test blade. Faster than even this camera can see, the knife-like piece of metal shears off and flies into the engine mechanism, wreaking havoc, but no fragments escape. The A380 engines are safe for flight, but there are many more pieces to the puzzle.
Okay. So again, now we can look at things like a bearing spinning at 80,000 RPM, going faster than a jet spinning at 3,000 RPM or anything like that, on and on and on. But when things are smaller, they can have higher edge velocities, right? That's why you have to be very careful when you get flywheels bigger and bigger and bigger. There is an absolute maximum amount of stress they can undergo, right? So, and the other thing is if the Earth is spinning at this 0.000694 RPM, theoretically, or at least mainstream science tells us that it should be throwing up an additional bulge. That's what's responsible for the bulge, right? The reason why we are a oblate spheroid, right? Because there should be something like a 24 mile, something like that in the center. Oh, okay. There's John. Okay. Anyway, there should be a large bulge in the center of the Earth, right? But when you go and you look at the water levels going around the equator, there's nothing out of the ordinary about it at all. It's like somebody forgot to tell the water that, there's supposed to be a several mile high of water there, from the centrifugal force. And not only would it throw the water off, it would throw it off and everything on the surface so far away, and the Earth itself would literally disintegrate. There's no way that it could possibly withstand the edge velocities to do this. This is all in the machinery handbook. And we did have a guy that, like I said, is an engineer that was at the conference in Greenville that actually worked this all out. So this is kind of cool. So if I bring up his PowerPoint here, he says basically that the Earth, if at that 0.000694 RPM, would have to withstand a 94,132.89 pound per square inch of rupture force, even at that low RPM. And like I said, we're going to do an entire show on this, and he goes through and he shows all the different materials that you could safely spin at that. And the safest the fastest we could possibly go at the speed, or what RPM we actually could do safely. It's all worked out here, and we're going to do a complete presentation on it. But this is an absolute another globe killer. Yeah, they're going to tell you, oh, well, yes, 0.000694 RPM is so incredibly slow, it couldn't possibly make any difference. But, they are purposely leading you away from that edge velocity, which would literally cause the Earth to disintegrate. It cannot go that fast. It just simply can't. And anybody can do this math themselves. It's all in the engineer's handbook. You can calculate it out, and it comes out to a number that is so ridiculous. It's kind of like, the moon, the inverse square law, when we should be having 14.7 quadrillion lumens of light coming off the moon. These numbers are just unbelievable. So they always try and downplay it, right? So, and it's just a lie. It's all a lie, every bit of it.
I missed most of that. Sorry, my internet's up and down like a yo-yo here. It's hardwired and everything.
But one of the things that I think is really interesting to think about is the lack of difference depending on your latitude. Because again, if you're at the equator, you're supposedly going 1,000 miles an hour around the curve, but when you're at the North Pole, you're not supposed to be spinning around any curve at all. And so you would expect to see a great difference in the centrifugal force at the equator versus at the pole. And yes, we do have this very minute amount of change in weight between the two locations. But really, though, you would think, and again, go back to the gravitron at the fair, right? If you've ever ridden on the gravitron, if you're riding it, your back's against the outer edge of the thing, and as it's spinning, you're pushed up against the outer wall, and the chair that you're in slides upwards. But the guy that's in the center of the ride controlling the thing, he's spinning around with you too. He's just in the center of it. He's on the axis, parallel to the axis, and he's not forced up against any wall. He's still spinning the same number of RPMs as you where you're stuck to the wall. And of course, the difference being the radius of the turn. There is no radius. He's on the axis. And so, when you're at the equator, 4,000 miles away from the axis, perpendicular to the axis, going 1,000 miles an hour, really, there is no difference in reality between that and the North Pole. No measurable, no noticeable difference. Just that minute weight change, allegedly. And I'm sorry, that doesn't get it for me. And frankly, I've never been to either. Yeah.
Isn't there an argument to be said that, wherever the magic point on the globe would be, that you're sort of phasing in and out of the sound barrier miles an hour, or so 760 miles an hour or something? Mm-hmm. Isn't there an argument that somewhere on this Earth ball that we should be hearing sound barriers going off constantly on a certain latitude? You would think. It's all nonsense.
But who gives a damn about the facts, though, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me go back to Mr. Dumbass Dave here. Hang on just a second. Share screen, Chrome tab, 10 things, share audio, share. All right, let's go on to the next thing. And guys, you guys are going to love this PowerPoint presentation this gentleman gave me. I worked out all the math and everything. It's taken me a while to go through all the math because he really did it right. And I'm also having a couple other guys in FE Core check it out. But again, it's devastating, absolutely devastating to the globe Earth model completely.
Who was it who did that? Was it
Jones
Synodge?
I'm sorry, was it who?
Jones Synodge or?
No, I forgot his name. I'll look it up here while we play this next thing. But he was a guy who was kind of hard of hearing. He was a little bit, he was a really nice guy, but he was an older gentleman and was an engineer for several years. And now he, does other things. But yeah, he's very, very smart. And yeah, this presentation is going to be killer. And, I can hardly wait to see what the ballers are going to say about it. So,
cool.
All right, let's.
They're going to say they're going to say we're retarded and we don't understand gravity.
Yeah, of course, I know. Here we go.
Some science education.
Yep.
6. Lots of you say that Moonlight is cold. This is astonishing for a number of reasons. The first is that it is not related to any claim you could possibly be making in order to argue for a flat Earth. But the second and much more important detail is that it is the perfect demonstration of the fact that you have no clue how science works.
Oh, really?
Some flat Earth priest measured the temperature under the moonlight and then again under something providing shade. Wow, moonlight makes it colder. But does it? Shouldn't you add some element of control to your experiment? What's a control, you ask? Fair question. You see, your measurement.
Now, guys, you got to pay attention to what he says here.
Which flat earther asked him what a control was?
What a patronizing son of a bitch.
His idea of what a control is going to floor you, right? He's going to say, well, you just need to come back on another night that it doesn't have a full moon, right? And do it then, and there's your answer. It's like, well, what about all the other variables? Like, it could be colder or warmer or, all this other stuff. But no, that doesn't matter to him. All that matters to him is that there's no moonlight, right? And what he is saying is actually causing it. He's saying it's being caused by the area that's in the shade. It's being insulated, right? It's like, no, hardly. These we've all done it. It's all wide open. I mean, he is so full of crap. I can't even believe it. But listen to what he says here, guys.
Isn't evidence of anything. You now have to repeat the experiment when there is no moonlight to make sure that the moonlight was indeed the cause of the discrepancy in temperature. This is something you should have learned in middle school, but don't worry, I'll finish the experiment for you. Take the
if there's no moonlight, there's no shade.
So
exactly. And it's a different night. And it's a different night. Everything is different. But no, that doesn't matter to him. The only thing that matters is you go outside and there's no moonlight. What a moron.
Well, I mean, how do you find the shade? But where's the shade at?
Well, you would use the same two locations that you did during the Moonlight. I mean, I do see what he's saying, but did he actually go out and measure the temperature again in the no Moonlight, or is he just saying that?
That's what I want to know, is where's his video doing this?
Right.
He doesn't have one, but I do.
funny,
I have a couple of them done by ball earthers, no less, but we'll get to those in a minute. Okay.
In middle school, but don't worry, I'll finish the experiment for you. Take the measurements again on a night with a new moon so that there is no moonlight. Look at that. You'll get the same result. So the moonlight absolutely wasn't the reason.
Wait, did
for the
he do
discrepancy
it?
in temperature.
No.
What was the
He
reason?
just said that he
Well,
did?
He just said that. He just said
So
that.
he
Oh,
just
look
said
at
it.
that.
Pretty picture. What a pretty
my
picture.
God.
But so wait a minute, like maybe he actually did, and he's just I don't know. I mean, it seems like if he would have done that experiment, he would have had more details than what he's got. But I am curious to know if he actually did it or if he's just saying these numbers
He's just saying
prove
these
it's
numbers. He has no evidence whatsoever of doing these experiments. And again, like I said, we're talking about an entirely different night. You cannot claim any variable on a completely different night. I mean, my God, it could be snowing for all we know. It's beyond belief, just beyond belief that he would even say this.
Beyond belief
That
that
thing-
people would fall for this.
Indeed.
that is providing the shade from the moonlight is also trapping in heat that is emanating from the earth while it faces away from the sun. So, case closed. I'll
The
link
umbrella
to at
is
least one
trapping
empirical
in heat.
demonstration of this fact in the description below. See how important it is to know how to do a science experiment? Maybe you should actually learn science rather than just repeating what you hear on Flat Earth videos.
Same to you, Dave.
Number 7.
Science.
God.
I mean,
So-
holy Toledo.
So what he's saying is that the umbrella, the shade, was insulating that area. Has he ever been in reality, or he's just making this shit up as he goes along?
And of course, we all use umbrellas, you know,
Oh, right.
on this experiment. It's always an umbrella.
Of course, every time.
Yeah. So, all right. So then we have this. All right. Now this was done by our good friend Slice Barkane, right? Who is not just an avid baller, but even Slice Barkane admitted to this, and he doesn't know why. He certainly didn't make a retarded claim like, "Oh, it's because you were covering and insulating it." That's utterly retarded. You know, especially when you can shade the moon from way up high, right? And tell me how that insulates any heat to cause any significant, 2 or 3 degree temperature change. There's no way that it could. I mean, Dave is not a Professor Dave, is a complete retard. So here we have Slice Barkane's, doing he's doing it with a infrared camera, a FLIR camera. And he even admits straight up, they don't understand why it's doing that. But the point is that if it's reflecting sunlight, then there is no way that this should do this ever. That completely goes against the standard model, where light, especially if you magnify it in any way, shape, or form, should heat up things. And, we've seen them actually take a temperature inside of a telescope where it's been magnified and it gets even colder.
And
Absolutely
also,
astounding. Go ahead.
I mean, in the early days, I don't know what it says now, but when you looked up, is Moonlight warm? Every textbook and science website out there would say, yes, it is. It's fractionally warm, but you need $1 million equipment to be able to measure it. Whereas anyone can go out there with a number of household thermometers, stick them in the shade, stick them in the moonlight, and it will show 2+ degrees difference, coolness from the moon. So
yeah, and if you do it under a magnified condition, I've seen it go as high as 20 degrees difference, which is really astounding.
Oh, yeah.
And so this one is done by our friend Ken Wheeler, who is not a flat earther. And he says in this video that he's done it several times.
To the moonlight, 41 degrees.
Let's see.
Doesn't matter where you are. Now, I'm looking at a concrete slab, and you say, well, there's uneven heating and cooling of the concrete slab. But I've done this in grass. I've done this experiment many times. Countless times, in fact. This is a forward-looking infrared, 39 degrees. This is directly in the shadow. Now we'll go over here. 38 degrees. Always warmer
in the
shadow, or we can inversely say
Dave,
always cooler.
Dave would have you believe that this is because he's insulating it, right?
With an umbrella.
With an umbrella or something.
All I can say is anyone can try this. Anyone can go out. They can go with the kids, with the wife, with whatever. Anyone can try this in whatever setup you want, and it will show you exactly the same as what we're claiming. Moonlight is cold.
Well, if the next time it's cold outside, I don't want to forget my jacket and, of course, my umbrella, because we all know how umbrellas insulate the air around you and keep you nice and warm. Everybody knows that. I mean, you guys didn't know that?
But you'll have to have a telescope at least 100 foot away to zoom in on the thermometer, because your body heat might be affecting it,
The Cavendish effect.
Cavendish effect, yeah.
Yeah, utterly retarded. Okay, let's go on to number 9 here.
Balls and pendulums and carts and rulers and timers to derive Newton's laws and many other such pillars of science. They personally do the science that has already been done by others in order to derive the knowledge that we already know and prove its validity to themselves. This continues through college and then on into graduate school, where students do their own research and figure out things that no one else has done yet. So using the word scientism only serves to disqualify you from adult conversation regarding science. In actuality, it is quite clear why you adopt this viewpoint, because you just accept whatever you hear if it's what you want to believe. This is why your beliefs are baseless. Since you are incapable of doing anything other than repeating what you are told, you assume that others are doing the same thing, but they are not. Those that are educated in the sciences understand how things work and use this information to build technology, such as computers and the internet, both of which you use to claim that the science that produced them isn't real, in a display of irony.
We're not claiming that science isn't real.
With a knife. And to wrap.
All right, so let's hear what Dr. Michio Ikako, or whatever the hell his name is, has to say about
I love
the
this about
scientific method.
astrophysics. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, here's another one. I'll play that one too, but let's listen to what Michio says here. Here we go.
In science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method.
Nobody in his field.
That's not even cherry picking either. He carries on to say, that they don't
how wrong use it. They are.
And then here's the rest of it. And here's what else he says about it. Here we go.
There is a crisis in cosmology. Usually in science, if we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120. That is 1 with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science.
But he was misquoted there, apparently.
Yeah. Thanks for setting us straight on that, Micho. That's awful nice of you. Unbelievable.
And ramp.
So, all right. So let's go on to number 10 here. And by the way, Dave, yes, we say that because every school teaches the same methodology. They teach you what to think, not how to think. They teach you the procedures for obtaining your results, and anything that is outside of the box is considered a failing grade. So that means that basically, just like that song that Zach sings, it's all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all turn out just the same. So everybody's thinking the same. Nobody's thinking differently. And anybody that does think differently is just usually shunned and, kicked out of the community.
They
or
fail. Yeah. And I just want to add real quick before we move on to the next thing, for him to make the claim that flat earthers just mindlessly repeat things they hear because they like the way that it sounds. I mean, come on, man. That's 100% wrong. And if you don't know it, I mean, really, your head up your butt, man. Like, look, flat earthers are not doing that. That's the globetards, bro. Flat earther, like, really? Do we even have to make a case for that? I mean, I think it pretty much speaks for itself that we're saying that, pretty much all of astronomy is way wrong about practically everything. NASA's a liar. The textbooks are all wrong. We need to get rid of gravity. Oh, but we just mindlessly repeat what we're told because it sounds good. Whatever. Give me a break.
Yeah, crazy. All right, so let's go on to number 10, because Dave, you do believe in scientism. You even admit it. It's like nobody. And here's the thing: the reason that we say that is because, and God, I could come up with a million articles. I actually should have pulled them all up, but they talk about basically the reason that science doesn't peer review anything is because there's no money in it, right? So if somebody spends, X amount of $1 million or thousands of dollars or whatever to do something, there's no money in it for anybody else to go and replicate that experiment. So it simply doesn't get done. And in fact, we find that a lot of people out there just will come up with stuff that they literally pull it out of their butt, and then they get published in prestigious scientific journals, and nobody even bothers to check it. And then they find out later that it was completely hoaxed and made up, right? I mean, and this wouldn't be allowed to happen if science actually did check itself, but it doesn't. It's gotten completely sloppy, and they don't follow up, and they don't police themselves, and they don't check their own results. Therefore, it is scientism.
Right, but they have a degree. They have a degree, so none of that matters. I mean, as long as you have that degree, you can do all that stuff. It doesn't matter, right?
I think they said it was over 99% of articles posted in scientific journals, all of them together combined, less than 1% of them have experimental backing behind them.
Yeah.
It's all theoretical nonsense.
And these are in mainstream publications. I mean, we don't even have to go to a conspiracy page to do this, Dave. We can pull it out of your own. It's like going to the journal for the American Medical Association and finding out that doctors are the third leading cause of death. I mean, it's printed right in your own journal. So, come on. This isn't tough. All right, let's go to number 10.
And balls and pendulums and carts and rulers and timers to derive
and lions and tigers
and many
and bears.
Other such pillars of science. They personally do the science that has already been done by others in order to derive the knowledge that we already know and prove its validity to themselves.
Yeah, in a perfect
this continues
world.
Through college.
Too bad
and
it's
then
not
on
true.
Into graduate school, where students do their own research and figure out things that no one else has done yet. So using the word scientism only serves to disqualify you from adult conversation regarding science. In actuality, it is quite clear why you adopt this viewpoint, because you just accept whatever you hear if it's what you want to believe. This is why.
Oh boy, talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Holy Toledo. No, it's you that just accepts what you want to hear, Dave. And the evidence is on our side on this one, dude. I got news for you.
One of the things that he mentioned before was also that so we have practical advancements in technology thanks to science, right? Hands-on physical science. And so therefore we must just blanket accept all of the theoretical stuff, the theoretical astrophysics stuff. And that's a huge point of contention to me because I made a video about it. It's called A Brief History of Flat Earth and Anti-Science on the Morgal channel. But basically, you have these practical advancements in technology that act as sort of a disguise for the complete and utter lack of practicality of theoretical astrophysics in particular. That you can't use the practical advancements in science as proof positive of the validity of theoretical science. I mean, they're just two completely different things. And just because there's a brand new iPhone out thanks to science doesn't necessarily mean that NASA is telling the truth. You understand? And that's basically what he's trying to do. Science is a real thing, sure, but that doesn't necessarily give NASA a free pass. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, if Dave wants to get technical, no science is involved in this technology. These are laws of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. You know, these are the laws of electricity and magnetism and, you know, thermodynamics and fluid mechanics. These are all laws. These aren't scientific, you know, these aren't the cause and effect type of science that we're talking about. These are laws of nature.
Yeah. But, you know, Dave is so convinced that he's right that he's afraid to debate Karen B. He is absolutely too afraid to debate Karen B.
Well, to back up Dave, I would be afraid to debate Karen B.
Yeah, well, there is that, right?
I straight up would not do it. So yeah, good luck, buddy.
All right, cool. All right, let's move on to numero 10.
Are baseless. Since you are incapable of doing anything other than repeating what you are told, you use to claim that the science that produced them isn't real. In a display of...
No, we don't claim that. There is science that is real, but the stuff you're peddling, Dave, is nonsense. All right, let's get up here to number 10 because I can only stand so much of this guy.
Right. To wrap things up, number 10, the pièce de résistance. The claim that we have all been indoctrinated.
Which is so
that
true.
We have been brainwashed by schools, by the government, by NASA, by Freemasons, by Hollywood. Take your pick. Well,
Dave, I would like to take this opportunity to point out something to you. The word government means to govern, means to control. Ment means of the mental facilities or your mind. So government equals mind control.
Yeah,
can I make
what it literally means.
Clearer?
I'm sorry, wasn't it Edward Casey, maybe was his name? 1981 CIA director who said something like, our plan will be complete. We know our plan will be complete when everything the American people believe is false.
Yeah, it wasn't Casey, but I know who you're talking about. Casey was the prophet guy, right? Edgar Casey.
Yeah,
I think you're thinking of, but I know who you're talking about.
Bernays or something. No, it wasn't Bernays.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I just want to
William Casey. It was William.
That sounds
Casey.
right. Yeah, that sounds right. But yeah, it's funny he uses the government. Oh no, that's not mind control. No, that's only what it literally means, Dave. Wow. Let's continue.
Well, and I mean, but it really is. It's pretty classic definition. I mean, they've got they put the ball Earth belief into the elementary school curriculum, and that's instilled into us at that age. And you can convince an elementary school student of Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. So yeah, the ball Earth isn't that far off from that. And yes, they are brainwashed into believing it. We're brainwashed into memorizing our ABCs, right?
Yep.
It definitely happens.
Useful.
Well, yeah, sure. Not saying it's all bad.
Yeah, but nowadays they don't even teach cursive anymore, which just kills me.
Yeah, and in Dave's defense, again, every cult member says this, right?
Yeah,
that they're not brainwashed.
Yeah,
that's just.
Yeah. Oh, and we're gonna get called the cult here. So here, let's hear them out.
Oh yeah.
Well, as I have demonstrated in this clip, you all say the same exact ridiculous things word for word, like you're reciting the oath of the Flat Earth fraternity. So it's a rather silly accusation to be throwing around. The fact that you all say the same things is not surprising in the slightest. What do you do when you want to brainwash someone? You tell them they have already been brainwashed. That's what Flat Earth priests do. They tell you that you've been brainwashed so that you are nice and receptive to the brainwashing. They tell you that everything you know is a lie so that they can lie to you. It's human psychology 101. Why do they do this? Money, status. It's a way for con men to capitalize exhibit a combination of ignorance and suggestibility. It's a cult. You're part of a cult. Not like the kill yourselves with Kool-Aid kind, but it's not that far off.
Oh boy, thank God that is over. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let me stop that. Let me reshare my screen here. All right, so the last thing he called us was a cult. Okay, so let's see what a cult is. I looked this up, and I've actually done this before. It kind of cracks me up. But let's see if Flat Earth actually falls into any of the categories of a cult. So here we have cult research, characteristics associated with cults, you know, blah, 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 all the stuff we want to know. So let's see, what are the bullet points here? The group displays an excessively zealous and an unquestioning commitment to its leader. Who the hell is that? And whether he is alive or dead, regards his belief system, ideology, and practices as the truth, as law. Well, first of all, we have no leader in Flat Earth. We don't even remotely have a leader in Flat Earth. And so we don't even know what you're talking about there, Dave. So you failed on point 1. Next point. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged or even punished. Au contraire. In fact, we want people to question. We want people to think. And yeah, no, we want people to doubt things. We don't want people to take everything that we say as verbatim. We want people to think for themselves. That is the exact opposite of what we are saying. And we certainly don't punish people for it.
Hashtag test it. Go out and test it yourself. How many flat earthers tell that to people all the time? Go out and try it yourself. Exactly. Nobody says believe what I'm saying.
I think we say don't believe us, don't we? As a rule.
Constantly.
Believe yourself, man. Like don't trust anybody. Trust yourself.
Yep.
You know?
So next one, mind altering practices such as meditation. Oh my. Guys, don't meditate. You might actually get a free and open mind. Mind-altering practices such as meditation, chanting, speaking in tongues, denunciation sessions, or debilitating work routines are used in excess and serve to suppress doubts about the group and its leaders. Oh, really? There's nothing in that statement that is right in even the most minute of form. All right. So 3 times down, 3 fails in a row, Dave. All right, next one.
Who gives a damn about the facts, though, right? Facts, schmacks.
Oh, Dave says nor a cult, so we have to look at this, right? We have to make sure. Got to make sure he's right here. Okay, the leadership dictates, sometimes in great detail, how members should think, act, and feel. E.g., members must get permission to date, change jobs, or marry. Or leaders prescribe what to wear, where to live, whether to have children, and how to discipline children, and so forth. Anybody know of that going on anywhere in the Flat Earth community?
Yeah. Did you get permission from the leader, Bob, when you moved out here?
No.
I was going to ask you that before, but I'm glad Dave brought this up.
Oh, man.
You might get in trouble.
Yeah.
When the leader rears his head out and shows himself.
I'm in trouble with the leader. Yeah.
You need to report. Leader. You need to report to the Department of Love and go for re-educating, Bob.
Yep. Okay. The group is elitist, claiming a special, exalted status for itself, its leaders, and its members. E.g., the leader is considered the Messiah. Ooh, wow. A special being, an avatar, or the group and or the leader is on a special mission to save humanity. Well, I could say we're on a special mission to save humanity. I could say that much is true, but the rest of it is complete nonsense. The group has a polarized us versus them mentality. Oh, no. In fact, that's quite the opposite. It's everybody else that has the us versus them mentality against us, which may conflict with the wider society. And oh, yeah, it definitely does conflict with the wider society. But again, not because we're going out there, with that mentality. It's because of the way people come at us. So quite the opposite. So what do we got? 5 failures for 5. The leader is not accountable to any authorities, unlike, for example, teachers, military commanders, or ministers, priests, monks, or rabbis of the mainstream religious denomination. Well, whenever we find our leader, we'll have to tell him that, I guess he's not accountable.
So he's 0 for 6 so far. I'd call that pretty damn sound science, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he's right on the money, man. He's
right on the money.
Dave.
Yeah.
No wonder you're a professor. We're not.
Well, according to Michio Kaku's numbers, he only needs like a 1/10 of one of these to be as close as they are in their cosmology, I think.
Yep. Well, I don't think he's going to. So far, he's at 0.
No, he's still not going to hit it. Yeah.
All right. The group teaches or implies that its supposedly exalted ends justify whatever means it deems necessary. This may result in members participating in behaviors or activities they would have considered reprehensible or unethical before joining the group, e.g., lying to family or friends, collecting money for bogus charities. Yeah, I don't think so, Tim. All right.
And who's the one? What's that one guy's name who collected all the money to go on some flight or somewhere?
Wasn't that
and
a
then just
ball
ate
earther? It was a
Yeah,
ball
I
earther.
think it was.
Greater Sapien, I think, was his name. Yeah, and the only people that are doing this really for the large amounts of money are the ballers, and that's why they always want to debate, because it gets them lots of super chat monies. And oh my God, so and this is fitting the ball earth cult right down to the gnat's ass.
It is.
All right, so where are we at now? Subservience to the leader or group requires members to cut ties with family and friends and radically alter the personal goals and activities they have had before joining the group. Au contraire, we are not requiring members to cut ties. In fact, we are promoting greater sense of family and greater sense of community. And yes, everything that just said, it's the opposite of that, 100%. Okay, the group is preoccupied with bringing in new members. No, not really. The flat Earth philosophy itself is doing fine. People are joining up of their own accord. And here comes John in again. They are. You're not connected, John. It's saying your device, so I can't add you to the group until you get your devices added.
You talking to me?
No, I'm John Savage, the other John.
Okay.
So when you might have to drop out and come back in, John. I don't even know if you can hear me, but it says device is not connected, so I can't add you. All right, so the group is preoccupied with bringing in new members. No, we're not. It's great that people do come in, but they're coming in because they're finding something to this. And that's good, because there is a lot to this. In fact, all of the preponderance of evidence points to the flat Earth, and the ball Earth just dies a little bit more every single day. So, that's horse manure. And you are still not. Oh, there we go. I got you added there, John.
You hear me now?
Yep, got you now. Okay, now it says, the group is preoccupied with making money. Oh, hardly. If you want to make money, I'll tell you this right now, guys. Flat Earth is not where you want to be. You are much better off doing cat videos if you want to make money, because no, there's no money in making flat Earth videos. You are discouraged. You are banned at every turn. You are demonetized. There is nothing about flat Earth that screams money. That's patently absurd. Okay, members are expected to devote inordinate amounts of time to the group and group-related activities. No, absolutely not true. In fact, that's just absurd. I don't even know how else to address that. Members are encouraged or required to live and or socialize only with other group members. Give me a break. That one doesn't even deserve to be addressed. And last but not least, the most loyal members, the true believers, feel there can be no life outside the context of the group. They believe there is no other way to be, and often fear reprisals to themselves or others if they leave, or even considering leaving the group. Now, if I was a ball earther, oh yeah, look what they do to us. If we turn over to flat Earth, look at how we're attacked. But like when Ranty left, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, good luck, Ranty. Whatever, buddy.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. But no, anybody that comes over to the flat Earth side, we are constantly ridiculed. I mean, everything. So the cult is truly the ball Earth on almost every single one of these points, and the flat Earth doesn't fit a single one. So sorry, Dave, you're 0 for 10. You lose. It's over. It's ridiculous. So there you have it, guys. There is our expert analysis from not a Professor Dave. And wow, what a moron.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to watch when you don't watch it all the way through, just straight through, and you get to actually sit here and poke and prod, and this wasn't bad.
It really is. It is hard to watch him though, because he's very smug. He's very insulting, and he tries to be. If you're a flat earther, you've got pretty thick skin, though. I mean, you're used to people insulting you and being mean to you for no reason, and dismissing what you have to say, and arguing semantics, and refusing to concede a valid point when a valid point is raised. But yeah, it's that he doesn't have anything. And at first, we had actually, I think we had him on the show a couple of years ago. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I don't like going around calling people shills or paid trolls or whatever. But somebody like him, honestly, I don't think he's a normal person. Honestly, I think he's a paid shill or troll, because he's doing these exact things. He's not actually meeting us on the battlefield of facts. He's wanting to go to ad hominem and to take straw man arguments and not actually argue the points. And to me, screams troll, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
He absolutely is. So let me get a couple of super chats out of the way. Again, thank you so much, James Richard, for all the super chats you gave us. I know that we don't necessarily agree on that one point, but that's okay. Keep watching us. We'll get you there, or maybe not. And you know what? If you don't agree, that's okay with us, because
then you're out of the cult.
Yeah, no. yeah. Then you're going to be out of the damn cult. All right, mister? You just keep that in mind. All right. So commercial sound and video says Culture Jammers and Truth Seekers meet up Thursday evening, May 20th in Tucker, Georgia at the Gold Dust Bar and Grill, hosted by Media Bear and Commercial Sound and Video. Oh, okay. Wow. Nathan, if I would have known that, I would have announced it. But give me something and I'll announce it on Sunday's show as well for you, buddy. For sure. And then Susan Meyer says, Bob, Dave is a modern day Tokyo Rose. Amen to that, Susan.
Oh, no, I got to know. What's a Tokyo Rose?
You remember the Tokyo Rose, the radio broadcasting personality that would taunt the servicemen, telling them how hopeless everything was. And
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That their wives were cheating on them back home and all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, wow.
So there you have it. Awesome. All right, cool. Well, I think that's about all we have for tonight, guys. So appreciate everybody for joining us. I'm going to go around one final time for everybody, and then we're going to call it a show until Sunday. So
Bob, I better say goodbye quickly before my internet dies again.
Okay, why don't we go start with you then, John? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, 3 times in one show. That's never happened before.
Usually that happens to me, so I guess you're the odd man out this time, brother.
Well, I would understand if I was on Wi-Fi or I was on my phone or whatever, but I'm hardwired to a laptop that's hardwired to... yeah, who knows? But either way, the parts that I did catch, it was a fantastic show. Apart from the big groan factor, but yeah, I'll see you all next week. Cheers, Bob.
Awesome.
Cheers,
Sounds
guys.
good. Thanks, John, for joining us. Very cool. All right. So let's go ahead and go around to you, Zach. What do you got coming up this week besides, well, we know it's coming up tomorrow night, but you can go ahead and highlight that again if you want.
Yeah, we do. I'll be on Ironworks in the morning. That's at 5 a.m. Eastern, real early. Yeah, I understand why most of you aren't going to be there. And then, but tomorrow night is going to be awesome. 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Bob and Brian Stavely will be on talking about the Mandela effect on IRM. That's going to be awesome. So come hang out and check it out. It should be a good show. But besides that, just I'm in heaven with my new friends out in the garden. And yeah, thank you, Bob, for letting me build you a garden. And yeah, I needed this.
Well, you're more than welcome, and thank you for doing it. I mean, wow, it's awesome. So everybody wins at this one, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm happy about it. Cool.
Awesome.
All right, and John, what do you got coming up? Anything in the immediate future?
Yes, I do. I've got the second half to King's Dethroned. I'm still working on getting that done, and I'll have that put up. But I did get the first half of King's Dethroned, like sort of an audiobook format on the Morgile channel. So that's up. And that I got the second half coming up soon. Also going to do another video where I'm talking about gravity. So that is kind of nice. It kind of dovetails in because gravity is such a big thing, man. I mean, really, so much wrong with it. You could, like you said, we could go on for all day long about the problems with gravity. So that's another video I'm working on. So yeah, just definitely keep an eye on the Morgile channel on YouTube. And yeah, great show today, guys. That was awesome to be here with y'all.
Beautiful. Or glad you made it with us, and hopefully you'll be able to make it on Sunday with us if possible.
I should. Yeah, I should. Well, I'm passing kidney stones right now, so it's up and down. Sometimes I'm fine, and then sometimes I just want to shoot myself in the face.
Yeah, so. I understand. That's got to be painful.
Yeah,
that's awful. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. And as for me, well, guys, we do have some pretty interesting things to talk about on the Sunday show that we cannot talk about on YouTube. But suffice it to say, some information has come up about this latest fiasco that we're going through that is rather startling. And we are definitely going to be covering it on Sunday. And all I can say is it involves magnets. And I'm not going to say any more than that because I don't want YouTube to get all carried away about it. But it's something that it involves a YouTube forbidden subject and magnets on your arm. Let's put it that way. Pretty crazy stuff. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you'll know that this is absolutely insane. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're in for a treat, but it's definitely not something we can talk about on YouTube because they just wouldn't appreciate that. So we won't.
Yeah, I think they gave Baldini a strike for it.
Did they really? Wow.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know his last Poppycock episode was struck, and his channel got an actual strike.
Yeah, unbelievable. So yeah, anyway, so if you can possibly, get onto Rockfin for that would be great. If you go to rockfin.com/globebusters and sign up there, that would be great. Of course, we're getting several of the flat earthers now are being accepted over on that platform. And so we are definitely growing in our presence over there, and pretty soon we're going to have a bunch of us there. So that'll be pretty cool. So I hope more people can join us over there because it's nice that we actually have a platform that we don't have to worry about being censored on, unlike this place. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, I think that is about all we have, guys. So we will see you on Sunday. And until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there is truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.